In the heart of Portugal, where the land meets the vast Atlantic and the wind whispers through ancient olive groves, a world stirs that few can see but many can feel. It's a world born of shadows and sunlight, of earth and sea, where the old stories breathe quietly, woven deeply into the stones and soil, waiting to be heard. This land is alive with legends and folklore, a place where reality mingles with fantasy, where the everyday world and the world of myth are neighbors, constantly brushing up against each other. Long ago, in the quiet villages and misty mountains of Portugal, people lived side by side with spirits, creatures, and beings they believed watched over them. They didn't question these presences, they simply accepted them as part of life. The wind might carry the sound of voices calling from the mountains, a child might see a glimmering figure out of the corner of their eye, and the ocean waves crashing against the rocks could sound like a giant sighing. The stories were everywhere, flowing through Portugal's rivers and valleys, guarding its hidden caves and sacred groves. For centuries, fishermen from the coasts told tales of creatures rising from the depths of the sea. They spoke of the Moura Encantadas, enchanting maidens of old Moorish descent, who would appear on moonlit nights to guard their treasure or lure the unwary. Villagers and seafarers whispered about these beings as if they knew them, as if they had glimpsed the Moors brushing their hair with golden combs, waiting by their treasures hidden beneath the earth. Sometimes, a fisherman might even leave a small offering, a flower, a seashell, a scrap of bread, hoping that this gift would appease the creatures below, that it would bring a safe journey home. In the rugged northern mountains, under skies that often seemed heavy with the weight of history, villagers believed that giants had once walked these hills, shaping the land with their colossal hands. People told stories of Serra da Estrela, a place they said was formed by mighty beings who had lived here long before any human could remember. Every rock, every boulder seemed to be filled with their silent strength. Travelers walking through these mountains might suddenly feel the weight of unseen eyes on them, as if the giants were still watching, still keeping vigil over their ancient domain. The mountains held secrets, and those who walked among them respected that quiet power, sensing they were not alone. As night fell across Portugal's countryside, stories rose up from the hearths and doorways like the warmth of a fire, binding communities together. Children would sit wide-eyed as elders recounted tales of lobosamans, or werewolves, that roamed the villages under the full moon. There was a sense of awe and fear woven into these stories, a reminder of the thin line between the human and the wild. Some claimed to have seen these creatures with their own eyes, men who had been cursed to change shape under the moonlight, driven by a fate beyond their control. Though terrifying, these stories also carried a hint of sympathy, of understanding that sometimes fate can turn a person into something they never wanted to become. In towns like Sintra, where the fog drapes over the hills like a shroud, there was a different kind of magic. Here, kings and queens, knights and sages were said to linger even after death, their spirits guarding the places they had once cherished. Sintra's mist-covered castles seemed to pulse with the presence of these figures, as if their souls were woven into the very stones. Stories of spectral knights and wandering kings passed from generation to generation, reminding people of the loyalty and valor of those who had come before. Children growing up in Sintra would hear of these noble ghosts, not with fear but with respect, feeling that they were protected, watched over by the noble souls who had fought for the land they loved. The rivers, too, seemed alive, winding their way through Portugal with a spirit all their own. The Tagus, mighty and unwavering, was said to be guarded by ancient beings who watched over the water's depths, spirits that protected travelers but would also punish the disrespectful. Sailors believed that they were never truly alone on the Tagus, that something older and stronger kept a silent vigil over every voyage. Fishermen would say quiet prayers before casting their nets, feeling the presence of the river's guardians around them, hidden in the rippling currents and the silver glint of fish. In those moments, the line between human and spirit, between the known and the unknown, became beautifully blurred. In some places, the land itself seemed to hold a quiet sadness, carrying the weight of stories long buried. Ghostly figures wandered the hills, gentle phantoms of shepherds who had died protecting their flocks, young women lost to love that had gone awry. The Moura Encantada, the tragic Inés de Castro, and countless others were more than legends, they were part of the landscape, part of the very soul of the land. People would visit these places not just to see the beauty of Portugal's rolling hills or dramatic coastlines, but to feel the presence of these spirits, the lingering sadness and the deep, quiet beauty that seemed to echo from the past. In Portugal, myths were more than stories, they were living, breathing parts of everyday life. There was a respect, even a reverence, for these tales, an understanding that they were more than mere entertainment. There were lessons, warnings, guides, and sometimes, the only explanations for the mysteries of the world. Generations passed these stories down not only to preserve history but to remind themselves of a world that lay just beyond sight, a world that kept watch over them and held them in its care. These myths were like invisible threads, binding Portugal's people to their land, to each other, and to the spirits that shared their world. In the quiet of a Portuguese village, beneath a sky that felt impossibly large and endless, a grandmother might sit with her grandchild, sharing these old stories as the stars rose. She would speak of magical maidens who guarded lost treasures, of giants whose strength shaped the land, and of phantoms who wandered the hills, never finding rest. And as she spoke, her voice would carry the weight of centuries, of generations who had whispered these same words, passed down like precious heirlooms. The child would listen, wide-eyed, feeling a sense of wonder, of connection to something vast and old, something as boundless as the night sky itself. In Portugal, the land, the sea, the rivers, and the mountains each have their stories, filled with spirits, creatures, and legends that hold the echoes of the past. Each tale is a part of Portugal's soul, waiting to be heard, felt, and remembered. Through these myths, Portugal breathes, whispering reminders of what once was, of what lies just beyond the visible, of a world layered with wonder, beauty, and endless mystery. On any given evening in Portugal, as twilight settles and casts a golden glow over the fields, you might catch the faint echo of an old lullaby drifting through the air. These aren't just songs or stories, they're memories wrapped in words, fragments of Portugal's oldest myths passed down through generations. Myths here are more than tales, they are woven into the very fabric of life, reaching into art, literature, faith, and the way people treat each other. To this day, the spirit of Portuguese mythology shapes the way people see their land, their past, and each other. Artists in Portugal have long carried the weight of these old myths in their hands and hearts, filling their works with the magic of the unseen world. One might walk through an art gallery in Lisbon or Porto and see paintings where gods and legendary heroes seem ready to step out of their frames. Many paintings show misty landscapes, guarded by spirits of the land and sea, or maidens enchanted by moonlight, embodying the old tale of the Moura Encantadas. In these works, beauty and mystery blend, reminding the viewer of the mythical guardians that Portuguese legends tell us have always protected the land. Portuguese artists have also used mythology to show the struggles and triumphs of everyday people, inspired by figures like Inês de Castro, whose tragic love story lingers in the air like a bittersweet song. Her story isn't just one of romance, it's a tale of loyalty and loss, and artists bring her to life with each brushstroke and line. Her sorrow, her undying love, and the way she is bound forever to the land are felt deeply by viewers, who see not just a painted figure but the emotional weight of an entire legend. It's as if her spirit lives on in each piece of art that bears her likeness, sharing her heartbreak with anyone willing to look. In literature, Portuguese writers have captured the soul of their myths in tales and poems that feel like whispers from another world. The national epic, the Lusíads, stands as a testament to this, where history and myth meet to celebrate Portugal's spirit and courage. The sea becomes more than just a path to exploration, it is alive, fierce, and filled with gods and monsters like Adamastor, the terrifying giant who stands guard over the Cape of Good Hope. Through this character, Portuguese mythology gave the ocean a face, a voice, and a fury that matched the sailors' own fears and dreams. When readers come across such legends, they feel not only the adventure but the underlying message, that courage isn't born from fearlessness, but from facing the unknown with a heart full of hope. Portuguese folklore speaks through stories told around the hearth, books passed down through families, and verses carved in stone. These myths teach humility, bravery, and kindness, values that Portuguese people hold dear. The legends of wolves and shapeshifters, for example, offer more than just thrill or mystery. The stories reveal the thin line between human and beast, telling of men cursed to roam as wolves under the full moon. Yet these werewolves aren't simply feared, they are pitied, too. They represent the loneliness and burden of those who, through no fault of their own, live as outcasts. In these tales, people find a lesson in empathy, a reminder that others may carry struggles that go unseen. Religion in Portugal also holds space for the mythical, merging ancient beliefs with Christian practices in ways that keep the old legends alive. In quiet village churches and grand cathedrals alike, saints are often honored alongside folk heroes and mythical figures. Saint George slaying the dragon is celebrated in Portugal, blending Christian valor with the ancient dragon legends that once filled the forests and mountains. To the faithful, these stories aren't just tales from the past, they are reminders of courage and protection. And sometimes, the lines between saint and spirit blur as people light candles and pray, hoping for guidance from the saint or the spirit that once guarded their ancestors. Portuguese traditions, too, are rooted in myths that bind communities together. Festivals often honor the ancient protectors of land and sea, as locals dress in traditional costumes and reenact battles, blessings for the harvest. These aren't just celebrations, they are acts of remembrance, ways of saying thank you to the spirits and gods who watch over them. In small fishing towns, blessings of the sea still take place, echoing an old belief that the ocean must be respected and honored. Fishermen and their families gather to offer thanks for safe voyages, asking the spirits of the waters to protect them from storms and unseen dangers. They believe the spirits hear them, that the sea listens. In Portugal, people grow up with the feeling that myths aren't simply something that happened long ago, they live on, woven into their daily lives. A child may hear stories of the Moura Encantadas from their grandmother, tales of beautiful Moorish maidens guarding hidden treasures. To the child, these maidens aren't just part of a fairy tale, they become part of the land, part of what makes Portugal home. And as the child grows up, that story stays with them, shaping how they see the world, how they feel about the rolling hills and the ancient stones that hold so many secrets. Even today, old legends shape the way people view love, courage, and honor. In the towns and cities, one might see statues of knights and queens, reminders of battles fought and lost, and of love stories that outlived their tragic endings. These figures are celebrated not for their victories alone, but for the loyalty and resilience they showed. They remind people of the values that matter most, values that continue to shape Portuguese society: loyalty to family, respect for nature, and courage in the face of hardship. In each piece of pottery painted by hand, in every tapestry that tells an ancient story, in the old cobblestone streets of Portuguese villages, the influence of mythology is alive and present. A beautifully painted tile might show a blue and white ocean scene, with a mermaid peering from the waves. For the artist, it's more than decoration, it's a tribute to the creatures of the sea, to the belief that Portugal's waters hold mysteries as old as time. When people see these tiles, they don't just admire the art, they feel a connection to their ancestors, to the stories that make their culture rich and alive. The influence of mythology isn't simply preserved, it's cherished, retold, and celebrated. And for the Portuguese, these legends are reminders of a world that is bigger, older, and more mysterious than they could ever imagine. They feel it in the art that colors their lives, in the songs that echo through their towns, and in the faith that warms their hearts. Through their myths, Portugal's people feel grounded, knowing that their land and their history hold treasures beyond gold, treasures of story, spirit, and love, passed down like a heartbeat from one generation to the next. On quiet, moonlit nights across the Portuguese countryside, tales speak of mysterious women known as the Moura Encantadas. These women, with beauty as radiant as the moon and hair flowing like rivers of gold, are said to guard treasures hidden deep beneath Portugal's hills and valleys. They are the keepers of ancient secrets, beings of magic and mystery who appear only when the world is silent, and only to those with pure hearts and steady souls. The Moura Encantadas are not just ordinary spirits or ghosts. They are woven from dreams and night air, embodying the wisdom and richness of ages long forgotten. Some say they are ancient Moors who, after being forced to leave, stayed behind as enchantresses, bound to protect the land they loved and the treasures they once held dear. But these treasures are more than gold or jewels. They are mysteries of life itself, tales of love and sorrow, whispers of ancient magic that still linger in Portugal's heart. Many have tried to find the Mouras, yet they remain elusive, choosing when and to whom they reveal themselves. They appear to farmers tending their fields, to wanderers lost in the hills, and to children who still believe in magic. Each encounter is unique, each story carrying its own blend of wonder and sadness, as if the Mouras are forever balanced between two worlds, neither fully alive nor fully gone. One story tells of a young farmer who, while working late one evening, spotted a woman sitting by a stream, her golden hair shimmering in the moonlight. She was singing a song in a language he couldn't understand, her voice soft and sad, echoing through the quiet fields. Mesmerized, he approached her, drawn to the beauty and sorrow in her eyes. When she noticed him, she did not flee, but smiled, a smile filled with a wisdom older than the hills around them. She held out her hand, revealing a small flower, more vibrant and alive than anything he'd ever seen. She told him it was a gift, a blessing, but he must never reveal her presence to another soul. Grateful and awed, the farmer accepted the flower, but it vanished the moment he touched it, leaving only a faint shimmer in the palm of his hand. The woman, too, disappeared, fading back into the night as if she had been nothing more than a dream. The Mouras are often described as guardians of the earth, protectors of nature's secrets and bounty. People say they control the fertility of the land, blessing it with their magic or leaving it barren when humans are careless or unkind. Farmers, even today, sometimes whisper a quiet prayer to the Mouras, hoping for a good harvest or asking forgiveness for a trespass. The Mouras are believed to understand the balance of nature, a balance that humans sometimes disrupt, and they are there to remind people of the need for respect and harmony with the land. But the Mouras are not only guardians, they are also women of great sorrow and longing. Some stories tell of their loves lost to war, of vows broken, and of a yearning that keeps them bound to this world. They are often seen as symbols of love that endures beyond death, of promises that are never truly broken. In villages across Portugal, stories circulate of men who have fallen in love with a Moura, only to have her vanish at dawn, leaving him with nothing but memories and an ache that would never fade. Some even say that the Mouras themselves are cursed, waiting for a love strong enough to break the spell that binds them. There are tales of treasure hunters who, driven by greed, seek the riches that the Mouras are said to guard. These treasures are believed to be hidden under ancient stones or buried in the heart of mountains, vast fortunes just waiting to be claimed. Yet, as the stories go, those who approach the Mouras with greed in their hearts are met with misfortune. Their eyes are blinded by illusions, their paths twisted by the Mouras magic, and they end up lost or driven mad, wandering endlessly, haunted by the Mouras' laughter in their ears. But those who approach with respect, with a heart unclouded by greed, sometimes find themselves blessed beyond measure. They receive gifts that are invisible to the eye but precious to the soul, a feeling of peace, a sense of wonder, a reminder that magic is real, and that not all treasures are made of gold. A common story passed down among families tells of a young girl who, while out gathering wildflowers, stumbled upon a Moura weeping softly by an ancient oak. The girl, moved by the Moura's sorrow, offered her a small daisy she had picked, hoping it might bring some comfort. The Moura looked up, her face etched with a sadness so deep it seemed to reach back through time. She took the flower, and in a voice like a distant song, blessed the girl, telling her that kindness and empathy would bring her happiness beyond riches. The girl returned home with a strange calm in her heart, and for the rest of her life, she was known for her wisdom and gentle spirit. People believed that this was the Moura's gift to her, a treasure far greater than any coin. The Moura Encantadas are not figures of fear, but of wonder. They remind people that life is filled with mysteries too great to understand, that there is beauty in patience, in waiting, in believing in what cannot be seen. Their legends are passed down, not just as stories of enchantment but as reminders to honor the unknown, to respect the forces of nature and spirit that move through the world. Through them, people feel connected to the past, to the earth, and to something larger than themselves. In quiet moments, people still feel their presence, in the warmth of the sun on a summer day, in the shimmer of water under the moonlight, or in the soft rustle of leaves as dusk falls. The Moura Encantadas live on in Portugal's heart, not as forgotten spirits, but as silent watchers, guardians of dreams, and keepers of a magic that never truly fades. They are there in every quiet path, every hidden stream, every starlit night, reminding those who listen that Portugal's soul is steeped in wonder and that, somewhere just beyond reach, the Mouras are waiting, still. In the windswept darkness of the open ocean, when waves rise like mountains and the night falls heavy, sailors of old would feel a chill pass over their souls. They spoke of a presence, a powerful, unyielding spirit that seemed to live within the storms and rage of the sea. To Portuguese sailors venturing beyond familiar shores, this was no simple tale to keep them alert. It was a truth they carried, a presence they felt with every creak of the ship and every howl of the wind. They called him Adamastor, the giant of the sea, a terrifying force that guarded the far reaches of the world, waiting to strike any who dared to trespass. Adamastor was no ordinary spirit. To sailors, he was the very embodiment of nature's wrath, a towering figure formed from mist and cloud, capable of crushing ships and casting men into despair. Those who caught even a glimpse of him could never shake the feeling of his shadow, a figure looming, grim and angry, across the waters. It was said his eyes held the storms themselves, swirling with lightning and rain, and that his breath alone could send furious winds tearing across the waves. His arms were the breakers, his body the endless ocean. Adamastor was the storm, the darkness, and the unforgiving heart of the sea. Those who knew of Adamastor's tale spoke of the tragedy that haunted him, a sorrow as endless as the ocean's depths. Legend says that Adamastor was once a giant, a titan, who fell madly in love with Thetis, a sea nymph of unimaginable beauty. He saw her dancing among the waves, her laughter ringing like bells through the sea air, and in that moment, he was lost to her forever. Yet his love was never returned. Thetis feared his power and the shadows that followed him. Driven by a desperate longing, Adamastor tried to claim her, only to find himself betrayed, scorned, and forever denied. The waves that had once brought her close now tore her from him, and he was left with nothing but the emptiness of his love and the cold, crashing sea. In his rage, Adamastor cursed the ocean, the winds, and all who dared to cross his path. His sorrow twisted into anger, his love into fury. He became a force of terror, haunting the Cape of Good Hope, lying in wait for the ships that dared to cross the seas he guarded. Portuguese sailors venturing around the Cape would tremble, for they knew they were passing into his domain, a place where the very elements seemed to turn against them. The ocean would grow restless, and the winds would scream as if carrying Adamastor's tortured soul, tearing at the sails and battering their fragile ships. As they neared his waters, sailors would feel their courage tested by Adamastor's wrath. The sky would darken, clouds gathering thick and heavy, and a silence would descend, thick and menacing. Then, as if drawn by their fear, the storm would break loose, waves towering and crashing down with such force it seemed impossible to survive. It was in these moments that Adamastor showed his face, sometimes only as a shadow on the horizon, a hint of something colossal hidden in the darkness, yet still larger than any mortal thing could be. Some claimed they saw his eyes, burning like fires in the night, staring them down, daring them to continue. The sailors who faced Adamastor knew what he demanded: respect, fear, humility. To face the ocean without honoring its power was a fatal mistake, for Adamastor had no mercy for arrogance. He was there to remind men of their place in the world, to show them that no matter how brave they were, they could not conquer everything. They had to approach him, and the ocean he guarded, with reverence. To those who dared the journey and survived, Adamastor was an unforgettable presence, a test of courage and faith that left them changed. They would return to Portugal carrying tales of the monstrous spirit, recounting the terrible beauty of his power, the storms that seemed to echo with his ancient sorrow, and the way he loomed over their ships like a living nightmare. These men understood the ocean differently after facing Adamastor, knowing that beneath its surface lay not just water, but a force as old as the earth itself, alive and watching. Adamastor was a reminder of the cost of exploration, a spirit guarding the final frontier. His presence made the ocean feel vast, endless, a place of mystery and danger where even the bravest could be brought to their knees. But for the Portuguese, who took pride in their courage and their love of the sea, Adamastor was also a figure of awe. He was terrifying, yes, But he was also a part of the world's greatness, a sign that there was something worth fearing, something that made each journey a true test of bravery. Even today, Adamastor's story lingers, his spirit felt in the storms that batter Portugal's shores and the roar of the Atlantic that has never been fully tamed. To the Portuguese, Adamastor is more than a monster of myth. He is the wild heart of the sea itself, a force to be respected and remembered. And when the waves rise high and the sky darkens, there are still those who say a quiet prayer to the spirit of Adamastor, hoping to pass through his waters unscathed. As the Portuguese sailors set out on the vast, unknown ocean, they carried in their hearts stories that were as old as the waves themselves. These were tales of the sirens and sea maidens, beings of haunting beauty and enchanting voices, who lived beneath the water and emerged only when the air was thick with mist and the sea eerily calm. To those who braved the endless stretch of ocean, these mythical beings were both a beacon and a warning, a vision of allure that could lead to ruin. The sirens in Portuguese folklore were not the harsh, winged creatures of other legends. Instead, they appeared as beautiful women with flowing hair, their eyes deep and dark, like the sea on a stormy night. Their voices were known to be as gentle as a lullaby, sweet and full of promises that no man could resist. But beneath their soft exterior lay the power to pull sailors away from their course, to lure them into the open arms of the waves, and leave them lost forever to the depths of the sea. Many believed that these sirens were the spirits of souls claimed by the ocean, restless and longing, forever trapped between worlds. Some sailors spoke of hearing songs that drifted through the fog, so faint and haunting that they barely seemed real. Yet as the notes touched their ears, the men felt their hearts ache, gripped by an emotion so strong it was almost painful. The song would speak to their deepest longings, their fears, their loves, each note sinking deeper until they could think of nothing else. Those who heard the siren's call described it as a melody that felt like a memory, something long lost and impossible to ignore. It filled their hearts with yearning, a longing to go to her, to seek the one who sang so sorrowfully, as if she was waiting just for them. Portuguese fishermen, who spent long nights on the water, would often share stories of seeing sea maidens swimming alongside their boats, their skin shimmering with the light of the moon. These sea maidens, unlike the sirens, were not known to harm or mislead. They were gentle spirits, protectors of the ocean, who seemed to watch over the fishermen as they cast their nets. In the soft silence of the night, fishermen would sometimes catch a glimpse of a maiden's tail flashing beneath the water, as swift as silver, a glimpse so brief it left them questioning whether it had been real at all. But to the fishermen, these maidens were more than just tales. They were a part of their life on the sea, a reminder of something greater than themselves. Whenever the catch was bountiful, it was said that a sea maiden had blessed the nets, guiding the fish into their grasp. Out of respect, the fishermen would leave small offerings, a bit of bread, a flower, or a coin, casting them gently into the water with a whispered wish of thanks. To show gratitude was to honor the sea maidens, and to ask them for safe passage and protection from the tempests that so often plagued their journeys. While the sea maidens were kind, the sirens were less forgiving. Stories tell of entire crews lost to the siren song, their boats found drifting, empty but for the haunting echoes of a melody that lingered in the air. Some sailors claimed that the sirens took those who had broken promises or betrayed their loved ones, that they had a way of sensing human grief and pain, drawing men to the water's edge only to vanish beneath the waves with their hearts stolen forever. For this reason, sailors would often carry tokens of their families, small charms that they believed would protect them from the siren's call and keep their minds focused on home. It was said that on certain nights, when the sea lay quiet and silver under the stars, the sirens would rise to the surface, their hair floating around them like seaweed, their eyes gleaming with a sad, ancient light. They would sing not to lure, but to mourn, their voices carrying across the waves, filled with sorrow for a life forever bound to the sea. Sailors who witnessed this would feel a sense of heartbreak, a connection to the siren's loneliness, as if they understood, just for a moment, what it meant to be forever searching, forever bound to something they could never leave behind. Portuguese mothers would warn their sons about the sirens before they set out to sea, their words a mix of caution and care. They would remind them that not everything beautiful was safe, and that the sea held secrets beyond understanding. For in the quiet places of the ocean, the sirens waited, knowing that there would always be someone who would hear their song, someone who could not resist the call. And while many feared the sirens, there were those who felt a strange kinship with them, understanding the pain of being caught between desire and duty, of living with a love that could never be fully known. To those who loved the sea, the sirens and sea maidens were more than myths. They were reflections of the ocean itself, beautiful and terrible, kind and merciless. Each time the men left shore, they whispered silent prayers to the maidens for protection, hoping that, if they should meet the sirens, the maidens' kindness would shield them from harm. The sirens reminded them of the power of the sea, a power that could neither be tamed nor denied. As the sailors looked out over the water, scanning the horizon with both hope and caution, they knew they were never truly alone. Somewhere in the waves, the sea maidens swam alongside them, unseen but felt, their presence gentle, like the touch of a breeze. And somewhere further, in the misty corners of the sea, the sirens waited, their songs drifting through the night, carrying all the beauty and heartbreak of the ocean. To the sailors, these beings were woven into the fabric of the sea, as enduring as the tides, and as unforgettable as the love for those waiting back on shore. Beneath the calm, sunlit waters of the Algarve's coast, old tales speak of something vast and ancient that sleeps in the deep. To the people who made their lives along the southern coast of Portugal, it was more than a story, more than just superstition, it was a truth whispered through generations. They called it the Kraken, a monstrous creature of the deep, waiting with dark patience for the right moment to rise and wreak havoc on those who dared to cross its path. The legends tell of a creature so enormous that when it surfaced, it blocked out the sun, casting a shadow that swallowed ships whole. Sailors spoke of tentacles that could coil around a ship's mast, pulling it under as if it were no more than a twig. Some said its eyes glowed like the deep-sea lanternfish, piercing the darkness of the depths, watching, waiting. Its skin was said to be rough and scarred, covered in algae and barnacles, a living mass that belonged to the ocean itself. It was the Kraken, an ancient terror that the sea seemed to obey, a creature born from the deepest trenches of fear and mystery. Fishermen who returned with tales of the Kraken were forever changed. They spoke of nights when the sea lay calm, the stars shining down like scattered jewels, only for the water to begin to churn, slow at first, then harder, like a giant waking from slumber. The air would grow thick and heavy, and a feeling of dread would creep over the ship. Those who had experienced it said it was as if the sea itself became a trap, with waves growing in unnatural patterns, spiraling and pulling, as though lured by the Kraken's pull from the depths. There was a tale of one such fisherman from the Algarve, who had sailed with his son to cast nets far from shore. They had been at sea for days, and as they prepared to haul in their catch, a strange stillness fell over the water. The fisherman felt an unease he couldn't shake, a feeling that something was wrong. And then, in the distance, he saw it, a shadow under the water, too large to comprehend. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a cloud passing over the waves. But the shape moved, surging closer with a slow, dreadful purpose. As the creature rose, tentacles as thick as tree trunks emerged, wrapping around the boat. The fisherman's son screamed, clutching his father as the boat rocked, nearly tipping with the weight of the Kraken's grasp. The fisherman prayed, begging the sea for mercy, feeling the cold touch of the creature slide across the deck, scraping against the wood with a sound that froze their hearts. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the Kraken released them, sinking back into the depths, leaving the boat rocking in its wake, and leaving father and son forever haunted by the sight of its enormous, alien eyes, watching them before it vanished. The Kraken's presence haunted the Algarve, a ghostly threat that even the bravest sailors could not ignore. Young men going to sea for the first time would hear their fathers and grandfathers warn them of the creature. They were told that if the sea fell silent, if the birds stopped calling, and the waves began to shift strangely, then they should turn back immediately, for those were the signs of the Kraken stirring from its depths. The Kraken, they believed, was not just a creature, but a warning, a reminder of the ocean's might, of a power that could never be tamed. Some claimed the Kraken was drawn by greed, that it could sense the pride and arrogance of men who believed they could control the sea. They said the Kraken's wrath fell hardest on those who disrespected the waters, on those who overfished or set out without proper offerings to the sea. In quiet coves along the Algarve, fishermen would sometimes leave a portion of their catch, casting it back into the water with a whispered plea for safe passage, hoping that their gift would keep the kraken's wrath at bay. There were tales of ships found adrift, their masts snapped like kindling, their decks scattered with the belongings of men who had vanished without a trace. Survivors, those few who returned, spoke of a darkness that rose from below, a mass so enormous it defied belief, a living shadow that blotted out the sky. They described the feeling of being watched, of being judged, as though the kraken could see into their very souls, measuring whether they were worthy of mercy. The kraken was the heart of sailors' nightmares, a creature beyond comprehension, the embodiment of the wild, untamable ocean. Even the bravest captains, those who had sailed to distant lands and back, carried a quiet respect for the monster that haunted their shores. They would glance uneasily over the side, scanning the dark waters, hoping never to catch a glimpse of that ancient creature. To them, the kraken was not just a tale, it was the soul of the ocean itself, a being whose existence was felt in every wave, every storm, every silent, mist-laden dawn when the sea lay calm, hiding secrets far too great for men to understand. In the villages along the Algarve coast, the old stories are still told, the memories of the kraken passed down, keeping alive the awe and fear of the deep. The people who call the Algarve home know that some forces are too old, too vast, to ever be known or defeated. The kraken lives on in their tales, a symbol of the ocean's endless power, a shadow moving just below the surface, waiting, reminding them that the sea is as fierce as it is beautiful, a mystery that no sailor will ever fully conquer. When the mist gathered thickly over the water, and the waves grew dark and restless under a hidden moon, sailors of Portugal knew it was not just the sea they had to fear. Somewhere beneath the surface, or just beyond the shore, moved the lobos marinhos, the sea wolves, creatures shrouded in mystery, both feared and revered. Some said these shapeshifters took the form of sleek, powerful seals gliding through the water, watching, waiting. Others swore they saw wolves running along the shore, their eyes gleaming with a light too wild and too knowing to belong to any ordinary animal. The sea wolves were no ordinary creatures. They carried a power that made sailors hold their breath, respectful and cautious. It was said that the lobos marinhos had the wisdom of the ocean within them, an ancient knowledge of tides and currents, storms and secrets that men could never truly understand. Their role was to protect the balance of the sea, and to keep safe those who honored it. But for those who showed arrogance or disrespect, the sea wolves would be an omen of doom, a haunting reminder that the ocean would have its justice. Stories tell of sailors who would glance overboard to see sleek forms moving below the surface, keeping silent pace with their ships. These wolves would swim alongside them, their bodies as swift as shadows. To the men on deck, these wolves were guardians, protectors who guided them through dangerous waters and brought them home. But for those who had been reckless or greedy, the sight of a lobo marinho was a warning. It meant that the ocean's judgment was near, that the wolves would watch their every move, ready to turn should they stray further into disrespect. One tale is often told of a young sailor named Pedro, who was known for his quick temper and his careless ways. He laughed at the old stories, mocking the traditions that called for offerings to the sea, ignoring the quiet respect that most fishermen paid to the waters. One night, during a storm, his ship was caught in a fierce current, and as he fought to hold the mast, he looked out and saw them, two wolves running alongside the waves, their forms moving like shadows over the water. He felt a chill as they watched him, their eyes fixed, intense, seeing through him as if they knew his heart. The sea roared around him, and in that moment, Pedro understood the warnings. His arrogance had earned the wolves' wrath. That night, Pedro barely made it to shore. His ship, once a fine vessel, was battered and broken, left adrift in the current. When he staggered onto the sand, he turned and saw the wolves standing at the water's edge, their eyes watching him, silent but fierce, a reminder of the line he had crossed. From that night on, he was a changed man, speaking of the wolves with a reverence that surprised those who knew him, offering his catch to the sea in humble gratitude, remembering the lesson the lobos marinhos had taught him. Other sailors told of encounters where the wolves saved their lives. In the darkness of a storm, when the skies opened and the waves rose as high as mountains, some men spoke of seeing the outline of wolves beside them, guiding their ships through the chaos. To these men, the wolves were a miracle, protectors who steered them from rocks or deadly currents. They believed that the Lobos Marinhos could sense their respect for the ocean, their quiet prayers whispered into the waves, their offerings made with honest hearts. For the people who lived near the coast, the wolves held an almost spiritual role. They would leave small gifts by the shore, bits of bread, flowers, or a coin, for the sea wolves, hoping to honor them, to show respect for their guardianship of the waters. Fishermen would whisper a word of thanks to the wolves when their nets came back full, casting a fish back into the sea as a token of gratitude, a symbol of the balance that the Lobos Marinhos so fiercely protected. In the Algarve, where tales of the sea wolves were strongest, mothers would tell their children that the wolves could tell when someone was true of heart, that they only appeared to those who showed love and respect for the sea. They warned that the wolves could sense greed and carelessness and would not forgive those who took too much. Many said that the wolves held the memories of sailors lost to the sea, that in their eyes were all the stories of those who had come before, that their knowledge was as endless as the waves. On calm nights, when the mist lay thick and low, some said they could hear the distant howls of the Lobos Marinhos echoing over the waves, carried by the wind. It was a haunting, beautiful sound, filled with an ancient sorrow, a longing that seemed to speak of the ocean's mysteries. Those who heard it would close their eyes, feeling the presence of the wolves, sensing the deep connection between land and sea, human and nature. The Lobos Marinhos were both feared and loved, creatures of legend that bound the people to the sea with threads of respect, humility, and awe. They were protectors and punishers, creatures who reminded sailors of the ocean's power, who demanded that it be treated with honor and care. To see a Lobo Marinho was to feel the weight of the sea's gaze upon you, to know that you were seen, judged, and, if worthy, protected. For the sailors who trusted in them, the sea wolves were a blessing, a sign that they would return home safely, held in the quiet, powerful embrace of the ocean and its guardians. In the highlands of Serra da Estrela, where the wind cuts sharp and the peaks touch the clouds, old stories tell of giants, beings so large and powerful that they could shape mountains with their bare hands. These were no ordinary creatures, but ancient, solemn figures who moved with a slow, purposeful grace, their every step carving valleys, their every breath filling the air with a quiet, powerful energy. The people of the region speak of these giants with a reverence that goes beyond fear or awe, as if they were guardians of the earth itself, beings who held the land in a gentle, yet unbreakable embrace. In these stories, the giants are as old as the mountains they shaped, woven into the landscape in ways that no one can truly understand. Their hands, rough as the granite of the peaks, were said to be capable of both incredible strength and careful, delicate creation. Some said the giants shaped the mountains as gifts, molding the land for those who would come after them, while others believed that each peak and valley was a testament to some ancient sorrow or joy, emotions so vast that only the earth itself could hold them. The slopes and valleys of Serra da Estrela carry their imprints, echoes of the giant's presence that cannot be erased. On cold nights, when the wind howls through the peaks, some say they can hear the giants' voices, low, rumbling murmurs that rise and fall like distant thunder. Farmers and shepherds, those who spend long days on the mountain, speak of a feeling that washes over them when they are alone under the open sky, a sense of being watched by something old and wise, something that has known the earth longer than memory. The giants, they say, are not gone, not truly. They are the rocks beneath their feet, the strength in the earth, the silence that fills the mountains at dusk. There is one story, often told by the fire on winter nights, of a giant named Estrello, who is said to have been the largest and kindest of them all. Estrello loved the mountains more than anything, and each day he would sit among the peaks, his gaze sweeping over the valleys, watching the play of sunlight and shadow on the land. One day, he saw a young girl, lost and crying, wandering through the rugged terrain. Seeing her fear, Estrello reached down, his massive hand gently scooping her up and lifting her to a safe path. Though she could not see him, giants rarely show themselves to humans. She felt his warmth, a kindness like the embrace of the sun. Her terror turned to calm, and she walked the rest of the way home with a quiet confidence, knowing she was not alone. To this day, that path is called the Path of Estrello, a name given in honor of the giant who guided her to safety. Others say that the lakes in Serra da Estrela were formed from the giant's tears, shed in moments of loneliness or longing. These tears, they believe, turned into deep, clear pools nestled among the peaks. Shepherds tell of days when, without warning, mist would rise from the lakes, swirling and filling the air with an almost magical stillness. It was said that, in these moments, the giant's spirits were near, watching over the land they once shaped, remembering a world they could no longer touch. To stand by these lakes in such moments was to feel an overwhelming sadness, a reminder of the giant's departure and the vast, empty spaces they left behind. One of the most well-known tales is of the giant Pedro, a creature so strong that he carried mountains on his back. But with all his strength, Pedro was gentle, his heart tied to the beauty of the land he shaped. One summer, when a terrible drought struck and the rivers dried, Pedro took it upon himself to restore water to the valley. He climbed high into the clouds, calling on the rains to fall, begging the heavens to fill the rivers once more. As he cried out, his voice shook the earth, and finally, the clouds released their water, filling the rivers and saving the valley. Pedro's love for the land left a mark so deep that the people still honor him, thanking him each year as the rains come, grateful for the gift he fought to bring. In the quiet moments, when the mist lays heavy and the mountain stands wrapped in silence, people say you can almost see the giant's footprints in the earth, as though they walked here only moments before. Children grow up hearing that the mountains are not just rocks or soil, but pieces of the giants themselves, shaped by their hands and left as a gift. When storms come, the people say it is the giants stirring in their sleep, rolling over as they lie buried beneath the peaks, their ancient forms entwined with the land they loved. The people of Serra da Estrela live with a quiet pride, a sense of closeness to something greater than themselves. To them, the mountains are sacred, each peak a reminder of the giant's strength, each valley a place of shelter and peace, shaped by hands older than time. The granite cliffs and rugged slopes are not merely landscapes but legacies, carved by beings who understood the earth better than anyone ever could. When people climb the mountains today, they sometimes leave small stones piled in tribute, a way of honoring the giants, of showing that they are remembered. Some say that, on rare nights when the moon is full and the air is still, the giants return to the mountains. Shepherds who have spent lifetimes in these hills tell of shadows that do not belong to any tree or rock, shapes that seem to move just beyond the edge of sight. They speak of feeling a presence, a weight in the air, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the giants to come home. These stories fill the hearts of the people of Serra da Estrela with a bittersweet reverence, a love for the mountains that goes beyond words. The giants are part of them, part of the land, their spirits woven into the cliffs and crags, into the mist and the wind, and to every blade of grass that grows along the hillsides. And though they may never see the giants, they know they are there, watching over them, silent and eternal, as they have for centuries, shaping the mountains, and perhaps, in ways unseen, shaping the hearts of those who call these peaks home. On quiet nights in the Gears Mountains, when the mist rises gently from the valleys and wraps around the trees, villagers whisper of the enchanted deer. It is said that this is no ordinary deer but a creature touched by magic, a being with fur that glistens like starlight and eyes that hold the depths of ancient forests. Those who have been lucky enough to catch even a glimpse of the enchanted deer speak of an awe that fills the soul, a stillness that goes beyond words. They say that meeting the deer is like being drawn into a dream, a chance to step briefly into a world where wishes are heard and the impossible feels near. The deer moves silently through the woods, with a grace that seems almost otherworldly. It is a creature of legend, one whose appearance is rare and fleeting, a gift reserved for those who hold a quiet longing in their hearts. Many have ventured into the forests, hoping to encounter it, to make a wish that might change their lives, but the enchanted deer cannot be sought. It appears only when the time is right, when the heart of the seeker is open and true. One story, often told by the fireside in the villages, is of an old man named Antonio. He had lived his whole life in the shadows of the Gears Mountains, his hands rough from years of labor, his spirit quiet but filled with a gentle kindness. He had lost his wife many years ago, and though he smiled and spoke with warmth, those who knew him best saw the sorrow that lingered in his eyes. One evening, while gathering wood, he felt a pull, a soft, quiet call that seemed to come from the forest itself. Following it, he found himself on an unfamiliar path, winding through ancient trees and thick ferns, the air filled with a silence that felt both comforting and strange. There, in a small clearing bathed in moonlight, he saw the enchanted deer. Its coat shimmered in the silver light, and as it turned its head, its eyes met his. In that moment, Antonio felt the years fall away, his heart filling with a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He closed his eyes, making a wish not for himself, but for his late wife, a silent, heartfelt wish that her spirit would find rest and happiness wherever she was. When he opened his eyes, the deer was gone, but he felt her presence all around him, as if she was there beside him, her laughter in the rustling leaves, her warmth in the gentle breeze. Antonio returned home, feeling a deep, quiet joy, his heart lighter than it had been in years. The deer does not only appear to those with sorrow, but to those who carry dreams close to their hearts. Young lovers speak of the enchanted deer appearing on moonlit nights, when their love feels most fragile and yet most real. It is said that if the deer witnesses a true, unbreakable love, it blesses it with a bond that even time cannot touch. Those who receive this blessing feel its quiet power, an unspoken promise that their love will endure, that it will grow and deepen like the roots of the trees that stand strong in the mountains. A tale passed down through generations tells of a girl named Rosa, a shepherdess with dreams of seeing the world beyond the mountains. She loved her home but felt the pull of distant lands, of places she had only heard of in stories. One evening, as she watched over her flock under a sky filled with stars, the deer appeared. It moved towards her, its gaze calm and deep, and in that gaze, Rosa felt a gentle understanding, as if the deer knew her dreams, as if it saw the longing that filled her heart. She made her wish, a quiet hope that she would find a path beyond the mountains, that her life would be filled with adventures and wonders. As she looked into the deer's eyes, she felt an assurance that her wish was heard. In the years that followed, Rosa traveled far, seeing the world as she had always dreamed, her path filled with beauty and magic, as if the deer's blessing had woven a touch of wonder into her life. And yet, she always found her way back to Gears, to the mountains that held her heart, knowing that the enchantment that guided her was forever tied to this sacred place. The enchanted deer is more than just a creature of wishes. To the people of Gears, it is a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is magic and kindness in the world. It is a promise that every longing, every dream whispered into the night, is heard by something greater, something that understands the heart's deepest desires. The deer's presence fills the forests with a gentle warmth, a sense of calm that wraps around those who are fortunate enough to feel it. Children who grow up hearing these stories learn to treat the forest with respect, to walk softly and speak kindly, for they believe that the deer can sense intentions, that it appears only to those who approach with an open heart. Parents tell them that if they ever find themselves in need, if they ever feel lost or alone, they can look to the forest, and perhaps, if they are lucky, the deer will be there, watching over them. In the villages, offerings are sometimes left at the edge of the forest, small tokens of gratitude, flowers, or a piece of bread, placed with love and respect for the deer and the magic it brings. Even those who have never seen it believe in its power, for the stories of the enchanted deer are woven into the fabric of their lives, a part of the mountains as real as the rivers and trees. The people of Gears hold these tales close to their hearts, for the enchanted deer is more than just a myth. It is a reminder of something tender and timeless, a spirit of kindness that watches over them, a gentle assurance that the world holds moments of magic if one has the eyes to see and the heart to believe. And so, as the mist rises over the mountains and the forests breathe in the quiet of the night, they remember the deer, and their hearts are filled with hope, knowing that somewhere, in the shadows of the ancient trees, the enchanted deer watches, listening to the wishes of those who hold dreams close and true. In the misty forests of Penita Gears, where silence reigns and shadows linger, tales whisper of wolves who guard the sacred lands, creatures who are not merely animals but spirits watching over the valleys and ridges. They are guardians, protectors, and messengers, creatures whose presence is felt as much as seen, who appear as omens, their silver eyes piercing the night, their steps as quiet as the falling leaves. To see one of these wolves, the villagers say, is to feel the weight of the ancient land and hear the echoes of voices long past. These wolves carry more than fur and flesh, they carry the spirit of Portuguese itself. They say that these wolves know the hills and trails better than any person, as though they have wandered them since time began. They walk these paths with a quiet grace, moving with purpose that seems to carry something more profound, a wisdom that is felt but not easily understood. The old ones speak of how the wolves are drawn to certain places, ancient grounds, shrines hidden in the woods, places where the stones hold memories. They tell stories of wolves that stand as sentinels at night, their figures silhouetted against the moon, watching over the land with eyes that see through the present, into something older and deeper. These places are sacred, protected by the wolves who seem to know the songs of the earth itself. One tale, often told to children on winter nights, is of a woman named Lucia, who lost her way in the mountains during a heavy snowfall. As the winds howled and the snow covered her tracks, fear gripped her heart. She was far from home, alone in the wilderness, with darkness falling fast. Just as her strength began to fail, she saw a figure in the distance, a wolf with a coat so dark it looked like a shadow against the white snow. The wolf did not approach, but stood, waiting, its silver eyes watching her with an intensity that felt both gentle and fierce. In those eyes, she felt something that gave her strength, a feeling that she was not alone. Slowly, she took a step forward, and the wolf turned, leading her through the snow-covered path. Step by step, she followed, the wolf's form guiding her through the darkness, the quiet crunch of snow the only sound. Finally, the trees parted, and Lucia found herself on the familiar path to her village, safe and close to home. She turned to thank her guide, but the wolf had disappeared into the night, leaving only paw prints that the snow began to cover. She told the villagers her story, and they listened in silence, for they knew that the wolves of Portuguese were known to appear in times of need, guiding those who were lost and giving them the strength to find their way home. Another story tells of a young shepherd named Miguel, who one evening found his flock restless, refusing to graze near the edge of the forest. As he stood watch, he saw a lone wolf emerge from the trees, its gaze fixed on him. Miguel felt a chill, not from fear, but from a sense of warning that seemed to pass between them. The wolf's eyes held his, and in that moment, Miguel understood. He quickly herded his sheep to a safer ground, far from the forest's edge, where he kept them close through the night. The next morning, he heard that a storm had struck, with fierce winds that uprooted trees and flooded the valley near the forest. If he hadn't heeded the wolf's silent warning, his flock would have been lost. To this day, Miguel speaks of the wolf with gratitude, believing that it came as a messenger, a silent guardian who protected not just the land, but the people who live within it. The people of Portuguese hold a reverent fear of these wolves, knowing that they are not simply creatures of the wild, but something more, a presence that links them to the heart of the mountains and the forest. These wolves are part of the land, spirits as much as animals, and their appearances are never random. They come to those who need guidance, to those who have lost their way, or to those facing choices that could alter the course of their lives. When a wolf is seen on a moonlit night, standing alone at the edge of the village, the elders say it is a warning. They look to the skies, the winds, the earth, for signs, believing that the wolves bring omens of change, messages from the world beyond the ordinary. To hear a wolf's howl in Portuguese is to feel a shiver down the spine, a sound that fills the air with both beauty and sorrow. It is said that the wolves howl to honor the spirits of the land, that their voices rise as a tribute to the old ones, the ancestors who walked these paths long ago. When the mountains echo with their call, it is as if the entire forest is alive, filled with a presence that goes beyond the living and touches the roots of something timeless. In the quiet moments, villagers sometimes leave offerings at the forest's edge, a piece of bread, a small token, a whispered prayer for protection, gratitude, and peace. They know the wolves asked for nothing, but these offerings are left as a gesture of respect, a way to honor the silent protectors of the forest. The wolves are never tame, never to be approached, but they are loved in a way that is fierce and filled with awe, a reminder of the mystery that lives in the heart of Portuguese. Those who have spent their lives in these mountains know that to see a wolf is a rare gift, a moment to be held close. The wolf may disappear as quickly as it appears, leaving only a memory that lingers, a feeling of having brushed against something ancient and wise. But the memory remains, a gentle assurance that the forest is not empty, that the mountains are watched over, that the sacred grounds are never left unguarded. The wolves are more than creatures, they are the heartbeat of Penita Gears, a reminder of the bond between the people and the land, a symbol of something enduring, silent, and powerful. And so, the people of Penita Gears live with these stories, carrying them in their hearts like treasures, stories of wolves that guard, that guide, that bring omens and protection. To them, these wolves are family, ancient and eternal, bound to the land and to the people who call it home. They are a part of every path, every forest glade, every rugged slope, watching with eyes that have seen centuries, keeping watch over the sacred places, as they have always done and as they will always do. In the ancient hills and valleys of Portugal, whispers linger of Lusitanian dragons, mighty beings with scales like burnished armor and eyes that glowed with the fire of untold ages. These dragons, fierce and wise, were woven into the very fabric of the land, guardians of the mountains and rivers, symbols of both fear and wonder. Unlike the dragons of foreign lands, who terrorized and destroyed, the Lusitanian dragons were revered as ancient spirits of power, wisdom, and protection. These dragons weren't creatures to be hunted or slain, they were beings to be respected, creatures as old as the earth itself. The people of Portugal believed these dragons held knowledge of the world's beginnings, secrets hidden beneath layers of rock and soil, locked away in the heart of mountains where only the dragons could reach. To encounter one of these magnificent creatures was rare, a sight that would leave a soul marked forever. Those lucky enough to glimpse a Lusitanian dragon spoke of an overwhelming sense of awe, as if looking upon a living monument, something greater than themselves, an embodiment of nature's primal force. One tale, often told by village elders, speaks of a dragon named Serp who guarded the river Douro. Serp was as ancient as the river itself, his scales a shimmering green that matched the flowing waters. Farmers would sometimes see his shadow gliding beneath the surface, and at night, his deep, rumbling breaths could be heard from the riverbanks. Serp was a protector of the land, warding off those who sought to harm it. Yet he was not feared by the people of the villages. Instead, they honored him, leaving small offerings by the water's edge as a mark of their respect and gratitude. There is a legend of a drought that struck the valley one summer. The fields grew dry, the crops withered, and the people began to despair. It was in this time of need that Serp emerged from the depths of the Douro. He rose from the river, his vast form stretching into the sky, his wings casting shadows over the parched earth. With a single, mighty roar, Serp summoned clouds from the distant mountains, clouds so thick and dark they blocked out the sun. Rain began to fall, drenching the earth, filling the rivers, and restoring life to the land. The people watched in wonder, knowing that they had been saved by the spirit of the river, by the dragon who guarded them in their time of need. But these dragons were more than protectors of the land, they were symbols of inner strength, revered for their resilience and unyielding spirit. Many stories tell of young warriors who sought the blessing of a dragon before going to battle. In these tales, a dragon's blessing was not an easy gift, it required bravery and honesty, a willingness to face fear and uncertainty. Those who proved worthy would feel the presence of the dragon beside them in times of danger, a guiding force that gave them courage when they needed it most. In the mountains of Serra da Estrela, villagers still tell the story of a dragon named Dragão da Estrela. He was said to be the last of his kind, a wise and ancient creature who dwelled among the high peaks, unseen by all but a chosen few. Dragão da Estrela was a watcher of the mountains, a silent presence who kept balance in the land. Hunters who strayed too far into his territory would feel a sudden chill, a warning to turn back, as if the dragon's very spirit watched over the mountain and its creatures. He was a spirit of protection, a reminder that nature's strength is vast and must be treated with reverence. Sometimes, though, the dragons were also creatures of fierce anger, defending their lands against those who dared to trespass with ill intentions. It said that if a dragon's wrath was awakened, the skies would darken, the air would thicken with the smell of smoke, and the earth itself would tremble. Villages near dragon territories lived with a deep respect for these beings, knowing that peace was possible as long as the balance was kept, as long as they honored the dragon's presence and treated the land with respect. One haunting story from the northern coast speaks of a dragon named Coco, who was known to guard the cliffs and caves near the sea. Fishermen believed Baiko had been there for centuries, a protector of the waters and the rocky shores. One summer, a group of treasure hunters arrived, hoping to plunder the ancient caves said to be rich with the spoils of shipwrecks. Ignoring the villagers' warnings, they set off at dawn, determined to take what they could find. But as they reached the caves, a dense fog rolled in, and the air grew thick and still. From the depths, they heard the low growl of Baiko, a sound that shook the very ground beneath their feet. Terrified, they fled, leaving behind all they had come to take. Since that day, no one has dared to disturb those caves, for the story of Baiko serves as a warning of the dragon's fierce loyalty to the land they protect. The dragons of Portugal were more than just mythical beasts, they were the very spirit of the land, symbols of wisdom, protection, and strength. Their stories remind the people of a bond with the earth that goes beyond words, a connection as old as the mountains and as enduring as the rivers that carve their way through the valleys. To the Portuguese, these dragons were guardians of the land, reminders of a force greater than any human, a reminder of the power and beauty of nature itself. When storms roll over the mountains, or the rivers swell after heavy rains, the people still say it's the dragon stirring, watching over their lands, ensuring that balance is maintained. Even now, when shadows stretch long across the hills, some swear they see a flash of scales, a flicker of a tail, or a gleam of a dragon's eye reflecting the last light of day. And in that fleeting moment, they feel a connection to something ancient, a spirit that lives on, guarding the land as it has done for generations. The Lusitanian dragons may be hidden, but in the hearts of those who remember their stories, they live on, powerful and eternal, a part of Portugal's soul. In the forests of Portugal, there is a creature that strikes both fear and respect in the hearts of those who venture too far from familiar paths, the wild boar, or porco bravo. Known for its powerful tusks and the relentless strength in its muscular frame, the boar is no ordinary animal. To those who know the legends well, this creature is a fierce spirit of the wild, embodying an indomitable will, a primal energy that pulses through the dark woods, through the shadows and echoes that follow the heartbeat of the land. Tales passed down through generations speak of a mystical breed of boars, ones that were more than just beasts. They were symbols of power and resilience, guardians of the forests that existed long before humans dared to carve their paths through the trees. Hunters would tell stories of sightings at dawn or dusk, when the light was soft and the shadows thickened. In those quiet moments, they saw glimpses of something far more than a wild animal, a spirit that seemed to pulse with the ancient magic of the forest. One such tale tells of a hunter named Joaquim, who was known for his bravery and skill. He was respected, perhaps even feared, for his ability to track and hunt the largest, most fearsome creatures of the woods. But Joaquim had heard whispers of a boar larger and more ferocious than any other. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of its spirit roaming the forest with eyes that burned like embers in the dark, its hooves pounding like distant thunder. Some called it O Porco Bravo, the ghostly boar that was said to haunt the deepest parts of the forest, a beast that could appear and vanish at will. Despite the warnings, Joaquim felt a pull to find this legendary creature. One evening, just as the last light was fading, he ventured into the forest alone, his breath steady, his senses sharp. As the hours passed, the forest grew darker, its silence thick and heavy. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig seemed to amplify the darkness around him. And then he heard it, a low, deep grunt, followed by a rhythmic pounding that sent chills down his spine. Heart racing, Joaquim turned, and there it was, the boar. Massive, silent, with eyes that glowed red in the shadows, staring into his soul. Time seemed to stop. The hunter felt rooted to the ground, paralyzed by the sheer intensity of the creature's gaze. He saw in those eyes not just an animal, but something ancient and wise, something fierce that had outlived countless hunters like him. It was a spirit of survival, a reminder that there were forces in the world that could not be conquered or tamed. Joaquim lowered his weapon, knowing that he could never harm something so powerful, so alive. In that moment, he understood what the villagers had meant. The wild boar was not just an animal. It was the forest itself, fierce and untamed. There are other stories, too, of boars that haunt the woods after their death, bound to the land by a restless spirit. These spectral boars, locals say, roam through the mist-covered trees, their ghostly forms glowing faintly under the moonlight. They say that on certain nights, if you listen closely, you can hear the heavy footfalls of these spirit boars, see the flash of their tusks as they move silently through the trees. Those who encounter them are struck by a profound sense of fear and awe, as if they are gazing upon something that belongs to another world. Farmers and travelers share tales of hearing these ghostly creatures at night. A snort, a grunt, a shadow moving quickly across a moonlit field, it is enough to freeze even the bravest among them. The sighting of a spirit boar is considered both a warning and a blessing, for the creature represents the raw strength and persistence of nature itself. People leave offerings near forest edges to show respect, knowing that the boar will continue its watch over the land, ensuring the balance between humankind and the wild remains intact. The wild boar, to the people of Portugal, is not just a creature of flesh and blood, it is a symbol of ferocity, an icon of the indestructible spirit of the wilderness. The boar does not seek to frighten or harm, yet it commands respect through its sheer presence. It is a reminder of the untamed heart of the forest, a protector of ancient ways that refuses to be controlled. Hunters who enter the woods now know to tread lightly, to keep their voices low and their hearts respectful, for the spirit of the wild boar hears and sees all. Parents tell their children stories of these boars to teach them courage and respect. They speak of the boar's strength, its resilience, how it fears nothing and no one. They warn them never to venture too far into the woods alone, to remember that there are forces in this world that demand respect. The children listen with wide eyes, a little frightened, yet somehow comforted by the knowledge that the wild boar watches over them from the shadows. In the heart of Portugal's forests, the wild boar remains a powerful presence, a symbol of something greater than mere survival. It is an emblem of the forest's eternal soul, of life and death intertwined, of a spirit that stands guard over the land it has known for centuries. To encounter the boar is to encounter the wildness within oneself, to face the unknown with humility and awe. Those who return from the woods, having seen or felt the presence of O Porco Bravo, speak of a feeling they cannot quite explain. It is as if they have touched something eternal, something fierce and beautiful that endures beyond time. And in their hearts, they carry the memory of the wild boar, the guardian spirit of Portugal's forests, forever watching, forever wild. In the mist-covered hills and valleys of Mythical, there is a figure who watches over the land with an ancient gaze, a being as old as the seasons, the Caliche, the old woman of the mountains. Her name is spoken softly, almost reverently, for she is not just a character in stories, but a presence that lingers in the turning of the seasons, in the first chill of autumn, in the hush before the spring. The Caliche is the guardian of change, a spirit tied to the rhythms of life and death, of withering and blooming, a fierce force of nature wrapped in the guise of an old, hunched woman. Those who claim to have seen her describe a figure cloaked in ragged layers, her eyes sharp and piercing beneath a hood that shadows her face. Her skin is as weathered as old bark, wrinkled and creased with the knowledge of countless seasons. Some say her hair is like the winter mist, streaming in long, silver tendrils around her shoulders, while others insist it blends with the clouds themselves. In her eyes, though, there is a spark, something that feels ancient and knowing, as if she sees into the heart of the mountains, as if she has seen every life, every death, every cycle come and go. The people of Mythical whisper that the Caliche is the keeper of the seasons. They say she carries winter in her hands, that with a touch she can turn the warm earth to frost, the rivers to ice. When she walks through the forest, leaves turn brittle beneath her feet, falling in her wake as she passes. Her breath brings the frost that settles on the trees, each crystal a reminder that winter is near. And yet, it is not out of cruelty that she brings the cold, but out of necessity, for the world must sleep, must rest to find life again. When winter arrives, the Caliche wanders the hills and mountains, sometimes seen standing atop a ridge as snow begins to fall. Children are taught that if they catch a glimpse of her, it means winter will be fierce, that snow will blanket the villages and fields, and the nights will be long and hard. Yet, they are also taught to respect her, to honor her, for she is as much a part of life as the changing of the leaves. She is not to be feared, but to be understood, for without the cold, the warmth of spring would lose its meaning. Some say the Caliche's touch can bless a harvest or curse it. Farmers often leave small offerings at the edge of their fields, a handful of grain, a flower, a prayer spoken quietly, to seek her favor, to ask that winter be kind, that the crops survive the frost. There is a belief that the Cailleach watches over the fields in the stillness of the night, her presence felt in the cold wind that sweeps across the land. If she deems the village respectful, if the land is honored, she grants a gentle winter, one that prepares the earth rather than punishes it. But the Cailleach is not always harsh. In the legend, there is another side to her. As winter begins to fade, as the days grow longer, she begins to weaken, her power waning with each sunrise. And in this, there is a tender beauty to her, a softness that comes as she relinquishes her hold on the world, allowing it to blossom into life once again. As spring approaches, the Cailleach, weary and worn, retreats to her hidden places, into the caves and high valleys where no one dares to follow. She lays down the cloak of winter, and from her fingers slips the last remnants of frost, and there she sleeps, hidden away, her spirit quiet until the seasons call her forth again. The villagers know that the Cailleach's rest is not forever. They know that, as summer fades, as autumn brings the first chill to the air, she will awaken once more. The signs of her return are subtle at first, the first frost on the fields, a sudden drop in temperature that feels like a cold breath against the skin. The people feel her presence before they see her, in the way the animals grow quiet, in the way the wind shifts, bringing with it a whisper that sends a shiver down the spine. In the villages, the elder folk are the ones who hold the most respect for the Cailleach. They remember winters long past, when the cold seemed unending, and snow covered the land so thickly that the roads disappeared, that families huddled together for warmth, their breath visible in the air. They remember her not as a villain, but as a part of life, a reminder that hardship is part of the cycle, that winter's bite is what makes spring's warmth so precious. In her cold, in her frost, there is a strange kind of love, a love that endures, that does not need to be kind to be true. Even today, when people venture into the mountains of Mythical, they sometimes leave a token at the foot of an ancient tree, or cast a respectful glance toward the ridges above, as if sensing her spirit, as if feeling her watching. Hunters tread carefully, knowing that if they show respect, the Cailleach might guide them safely through the cold. And when the first snow falls each year, families draw close, sharing stories of her around the fire, passing down her legend to the young, ensuring that the Cailleach's spirit is never forgotten, that her watch over the land remains unbroken. The Cailleach of Mythical is more than a myth. She is woven into the fabric of the land itself, a silent guardian, an old spirit whose presence lingers with every winter wind, every frost-covered leaf. She is fierce and relentless, yet wise and nurturing in her own way, shaping the seasons, shaping the lives of those who call the mountains home. Through her, the people of Mythical find a strange comfort in the cold, knowing that the Cailleach is there, watching over them, a timeless part of the world that holds them, that sustains them, and that, in her own fierce way, loves them. It starts with a small sound in the night, a tap, a faint scratching, a soft shuffle across the floor. Villagers say that's how you know they've arrived. They aren't here to harm or hurt, just to play, to leave you scratching your head or laughing at their antics. These are the Trascos and Duendes, the little tricksters who seem to live in the shadows and whispering corners of the Portuguese countryside, moving unseen, laughing at the confusion they leave in their wake. The Trascos and Duendes are small, barely knee-high, with eyes that gleam with a mischief that never tires. In some stories, they have pointed ears and crooked grins. In others, they're tiny shadows that dart about just out of sight, quick as a blink. They are known to be curious, endlessly amused by the oddities of human life. Some nights, they may sit quietly in a corner, watching with wide eyes as families go about their routines, listening to bedtime stories or watching fires crackle in the hearth. But when the lights go out and the world falls silent, that's when their play begins. Villagers often find small things misplaced or mysteriously moved. A shoe left by the door might end up on the kitchen table, or a spoon disappears, only to be found days later buried in the garden. Children wake up to find their toys rearranged, a doll with its dress on backward, or a horse missing its tail. Sometimes, they hear giggles, soft, barely their laughter that seems to float through the walls. And though it might startle them at first, the villagers know these pranks are the handiwork of the Trasgos and Duendes. They're harmless, playful spirits who ask for nothing but a bit of attention, a bit of respect, and maybe a good laugh. Parents warn their children not to anger the Trasgos and Duendes by ignoring their tricks. They teach them to smile, to let their belongings go if they're missing, for these little spirits are easily offended. If you try to outsmart them, they only dig in their heels, doubling down on their antics. Some say the more you chase them away, the more stubborn they become, their pranks turning more elaborate, their tricks becoming even harder to explain. It's almost as if they're saying, "Don't forget about us, we're here, too." But as mischievous as they are, the Trasgos and Duendes also seem to have a soft spot for kindness. Families who leave them a bit of bread or a drop of milk in a bowl at night often find their luck turning, things running just a little smoother, their homes feeling a bit more protected. Perhaps it's a coincidence, but those who keep them happy say they sleep better, their dreams lighter, knowing that the Trasgos and Duendes are around, watching over them in their own way. A small offering on the windowsill, a scrap of bread, a tiny drop of honey, sometimes seems enough to keep these spirits happy, their pranks gentler and more good-natured. Yet, their love of play isn't always gentle. Some stories tell of the Trasgos and Duendes' playful spitefulness, their pranks skirting the edge of chaos. Horses are found with their manes braided into tight knots that take hours to untangle, and bags of flour mysteriously tip over, leaving clouds of white dust that linger in the air. Farmers say their plows go missing from fields overnight, only to be found in trees or atop nearby hills, as if the Trasgos and Duendes wanted to remind them who truly controls the land. And though these tricks are frustrating, the villagers can't help but feel a certain fondness for these spirits, an odd gratitude for the life they bring to the quiet countryside. The Trasgos and Duendes are known for their attachment to homes with laughter and warmth. They're drawn to families who tell stories, who sing by the fire, who hold their loved ones close. It's as if they find joy in human joy, delighting in the laughter and love that fills these small homes. Children are taught to laugh at their pranks, to play along with the game, for it's said that Trasgos and Duendes find happiness in sharing a bit of mischief, and weaving themselves into the fabric of family life. These little creatures want to be part of the home, to be remembered, even if it's just as a whisper in the night, a shadow that flits past a candle's flickering light. In quieter times, older villagers sometimes say the Trasgos and Duendes were once guardians of the forests and fields, spirits of the wild who watched over the land and all who walked it. When people settled, bringing their homes and families to the edges of these hidden places, the spirits grew curious, drawn to the warmth and stories that filled these homes. And so, they became household spirits, leaving behind the vast open land to make their mischief among pots and pans, to tug at hair ribbons and hide needles and buttons, finding their joy in the closeness of human life. But these playful spirits still carry a hint of wildness, a connection to the old ways that isn't entirely tamed. When the moon is full, or when the first frost appears on the ground, the Trasgos and Duendes sometimes vanish, leaving the village eerily quiet, the night still. It's as if they are called back to the ancient places, to the deep woods and the hills where their spirits were born. And when they return, there's a change, a certain restlessness, a spark of the untamed that runs through their pranks, reminding the villagers that these little beings belong as much to the wild as to the homes they haunt. Children are told not to call out to them or look for them too eagerly, for Trasgos and Duendes are shy and capricious, spirits who come and go as they please. The stories passed down remind everyone that these beings cannot be controlled or owned, only respected and enjoyed from afar. And while they may play their tricks, and sometimes frustrate with their antics, the villagers know that the Trasgos and Duendes are part of what makes their homes feel alive, a mischievous bit of magic woven into the everyday. On winter nights, as fires crackle and shadows dance across the walls, families share tales of the Trasgos and Duendes with a fond smile, laughing at the pranks they've endured, the small frustrations and the strange discoveries. They know that somewhere in the shadows, in the tiny corners of their homes, those eyes are watching, gleaming with amusement, waiting for the lights to go out, for the night to grow quiet, so that they can begin their play once more. And in that knowledge, there is comfort, a feeling that even in the stillness of night, they are never alone, watched over by spirits as old as the land, as curious as children, forever laughing, forever near. It begins as a soft murmur, a gentle breeze stirring leaves and drifting past windows. Some say it feels like a tender hand brushing against your cheek, while others hear it as a hushed voice, barely audible but filled with meaning. They are the whispering wind spirits, messengers that travel across fields and valleys, bringing whispers of the past and carrying messages from those who have gone before. In the quiet moments, when the sun dips low and the air cools, these winds move like secrets through the trees. To walk alone at dusk is to know their presence, to feel the gentle tug of something unseen, something that brushes against you and leaves behind a shiver that's hard to shake. In that instant, you understand that the air itself seems to hold something more, a memory, a whisper carrying wisdom older than any living soul. Villagers say these spirits are guides from the other side, ancestors who have watched over them for generations. They believe that when someone feels lost or uncertain, they can seek guidance in the wind. Standing alone under the open sky, they close their eyes and listen, hoping to catch the faintest whisper, an answer from those who walked the same paths long ago. It might be just a single word, a thought, a feeling that rises in their chest. But to those who believe, that whisper is a connection to everything that has come before, a comfort that ties them to their past and the spirits that continue to watch over them. On nights when storms approach, when the sky grows dark and winds whip through the valleys, these spirits seem to speak louder, their voices carried on the gusts that sweep through homes and villages. It's on these nights that the whispers take on a new tone, not soft and comforting, but urgent, as if the spirits have something to warn against, something they must share. Families gather close, sharing stories of times when the wind's warning saved lives, stories of storms that were feared because the wind had called out before they arrived. People remember the night the old mill collapsed, the night the river rose higher than ever before. And before each disaster, someone had heard the wind cry out, carrying the voices of those who seemed to know what was coming before it even arrived. Farmers paused their work on those windy afternoons, looking up to the sky, hands stilled as they listened to the invisible words dancing around them. They know these spirits have traveled across endless lands, carrying wisdom that can only be felt in the quiet spaces between the gusts. It's said that if you stay still long enough, if you open your heart to the whispering wind, you might hear the voice of someone you once loved, a mother's soft song, a father's gentle encouragement, a friend's laughter echoing across the distance. In these fleeting moments, it's as if the boundary between worlds blurs, as if the spirits themselves are reaching out to remind you that love never really dies, that they're still there, somewhere just beyond sight, carried on the breeze that sweeps through the fields. In times of grief, the wind spirits take on a new importance. When loss feels unbearable and the weight of sorrow presses down, people turn to the wind. They stand at the edges of cliffs, on lonely hilltops, or by the crashing waves, listening to the way the air shifts and changes, hoping for a sign, a whisper that will tell them everything will be all right. Sometimes, a soft breeze lifts their hair, wraps around them like a warm embrace, and in that instant, they feel held, reassured, as if a beloved spirit has come to comfort them in their darkest hour. To those who listen closely, these whispers are not mere sounds, they are the voices of their ancestors, the ones who have crossed over but have never really left. But the whispers aren't always gentle, sometimes they carry tales of regret, of warnings left unheeded, of sadness and longing. On nights when the wind howls and rushes through villages with a voice that sounds almost like weeping, villagers know to stay indoors, to light candles and murmur prayers. They believe that on these nights, the spirits are mourning, bringing stories of the past, memories that echo through time and linger, haunting those who listen too closely. It's as though the spirits have regrets of their own, moments of love left unsaid, promises unkept, and they bring these memories back in the wild winds that sweep through the land, calling out to be remembered, to be heard. Children are taught to respect the wind, to pause and listen whenever it calls, to never laugh at its whispers or try to silence it. The old ones tell them that the wind spirits remember everything, every tear, every laugh, every moment of kindness or cruelty, and carry it all forward, from generation to generation. They say the wind can forgive, but it never forgets, that it carries a record of the lives lived on this land, the love, the loss, and every promise made to those who came before. In spring, when blossoms cover the trees and the world feels young again, the wind carries a different kind of message. It's lighter, filled with laughter and joy, as if the spirits themselves are celebrating the renewal of life, the return of warmth. People gather outdoors, feeling the gentle breezes that sweep through the blossoming branches, and they smile, knowing that the spirits are close, that they are sharing in the beauty of the world once more. The whispering winds tell them that life goes on, that joy returns, that the cycle of the seasons brings hope, even after the coldest winter. In their quiet moments, those who live in the valleys and on the hills of Portugal hold onto these beliefs, finding comfort in the unseen, and the quiet whispers that brush past them, reminding them that they are never truly alone. They live with the knowledge that every sigh of the wind might be a message, a reminder of those who have walked before, those who still watch over them, unseen but ever present, carried on the gentle winds that sweep across the land. And in those moments, they feel a peace that comes from knowing they are part of something much larger, something endless and beautiful, woven into the very air they breathe. In the shadows of quiet Portuguese villages, beneath moonlight that casts the world in silver and mystery, stories of the lobisomens, werewolves, linger like the chill of a winter's night. To some, they are only tales whispered to children to keep them close to home after dark. But to others, the stories are warnings, reminders of the fate that can befall a person touched by the ancient curse of transformation. The lobisomem, it is said, doesn't choose his path. Often, it is a tragic inheritance, a fate handed down through blood. For those marked by it, there comes a time when the full moon rises, brilliant and powerful, stirring something wild and dreadful within them. On these nights, the villagers talk in hushed tones, shivering despite the warmth of their fires, sensing that somewhere in the nearby forests, one of their own might be changing. There is a sadness in this curse, a weight that drags on the heart. Unlike the stories of wolves that inspire fear alone, the tale of the lobisomem is woven with empathy and sorrow, for it tells of a person trapped between two worlds, a person who, despite every prayer and every ounce of strength, must surrender to the moon's call. These werewolves are said to have an almost unbearable pain during transformation, an agony that courses through their bones as they twist and reshape, becoming the very creature they most dread. When dawn comes, they are left to remember every scent, every sensation, every flash of movement from the night before. In these small villages, there are rituals, old customs meant to protect loved ones from the curse. If a baby is born as the seventh child to a family or is born on a Friday the 13th, villagers will often go to great lengths to keep this child away from the moon's pull. Tales say that such children are at risk of becoming lobisomens, forever bound to walk the dark paths and lonely fields on moonlit nights. And so, for centuries, Portuguese families have followed traditions to ward off the curse, baptizing infants in the sea, or bathing them in water from 7 different springs, calling upon the saints to protect the child from ever feeling the moon's touch in that way. Even the wolves themselves, those who carry the curse, hold on to traditions of their own. Some say that a lobisomem can only be freed if, one night, another person sees him in his beastly form and cuts him with a knife marked with a cross. This act is not meant to harm, but to remind the wolf of his humanity, breaking the spell that binds him to his monstrous fate. There are whispers of those brave souls who, upon realizing a loved one is under the curse, search the forests at night, blade in hand, willing to risk their own lives to free a brother, a father, a friend. Yet, few who bear the curse ever reveal it. Most hide it deeply, learning to manage their lives around the pull of the full moon, becoming masters of secrecy and solitude. For to reveal oneself as a lobisomem is to face isolation, to be shunned by neighbors who live in fear of the unknown. Those who have endured the curse for years are said to develop a strange sadness, a quiet that settles in their bones, as if they carry the weight of 2 lives, one human, filled with all the joys and sorrows of love, friendship, and family, and another, wild, fierce, and alone beneath the light of the moon. For those who suspect the presence of a lobisomem among them, fear lingers like a low fog. They look for signs, though the signs are never clear, as the curse hides well in daylight. Some villagers claim that those cursed by the transformation carry a darkness in their eyes, a depth that only those who've seen the wild edges of life possess. They say that the wolves cannot bear to look at the moon during its full glow, and they are often drawn to the forests, where they linger in shadows, longing for the freedom that they know will come, but only for a brief and terrible night. Sometimes, a villager will vanish on these nights, leaving only a torn piece of clothing or the marks of bare feet leading to the forest's edge. Friends and family fear the worst but remain silent, knowing in their hearts that perhaps their loved one has become one of the lobisamens, wandering alone through the trees. And when dawn breaks and they return, exhausted, haunted, with leaves clinging to their hair and scratches covering their skin, the villagers say nothing, only casting a knowing look. For to speak of it would be to admit that these things are real, that perhaps anyone could be next, cursed to live under the shadow of the moon. These tales have woven themselves deeply into the lives of those who live under the watchful eye of Portugal's hills and valleys. While the younger generations might laugh off these stories, scoffing at their elders' beliefs, there are those who keep the traditions alive, who still feel that shiver when the full moon rises. And when the dogs howl late at night, their voices rising into the darkness, even the most skeptical pause, feeling the weight of centuries-old fears trickling down their spine. There is both horror and heartbreak in the story of the lobisamem, for it tells of a life caught between human warmth and the loneliness of the wild. It tells of men and women who love, who laugh, who hold their children close, and then, when night falls and the moon glows, must become something else entirely, something neither fully beast nor fully human, but something broken, something trapped. And so, the story of the lobisamem becomes a story of empathy, reminding those who hear it that not all monsters choose to be monsters, and not every curse can be seen. The moon rises, the transformation takes hold, and in the quiet villages of Portugal, they wait for the dawn, hoping to see their loved ones return, whole and human, for just one more day. On mist-laden nights, as fog drifts silently over the rolling hills and valleys of Portugal, some say you might see a figure out in the fields. In the quietness, between the distant sounds of bells from grazing goats, a lone figure moves slowly, as though woven from the very mist itself. Villagers say that if you look carefully, you may catch a glimpse of the phantom goatherd, a spectral shepherd wandering the hillsides, seemingly searching for something, or perhaps someone, that he can never find. The stories surrounding these ghostly goatherds have been told for generations, their roots tangled in the beauty and tragedy of love lost. Each tale whispers of a time long ago, when young men, clad in simple clothes, would tend to goats or sheep across the countryside. These goatherds lived close to the land, spending their days and nights in the quiet company of their animals, under the watchful eye of mountains and stars. But for some, their story did not end with a simple life on the hills. For some, the ache of unfulfilled love lingered long after death, binding them to the earth, to the quiet fields where they once walked in hope and sorrow. One of the most haunting legends speaks of a young goatherd who had fallen deeply in love with a village girl. Every evening after a long day with his goats, he would walk miles just to catch a glimpse of her, waiting in the shadows by her door, hoping to see her smile. But her family, set on marrying her to a wealthier suitor, forbade her from seeing the young goatherd. Despite their efforts, he would still find ways to meet her, their love a secret woven in whispers and hurried embraces. One dark winter night, when he could bear the separation no longer, he braved the icy hills to see her, promising her that they would run away together by dawn. But dawn came, and he never arrived. Some say he slipped and fell in the darkness, others say he was caught in a storm, while others insist her father found him and made sure he would never see her again. The young goatherd was buried in the very hills where he once tended his animals, his love for her as much a part of him as the earth that covered his resting place. But the story didn't end there. For nights after his death, villagers claimed to see him walking in the fields, a shadowy figure against the night sky, his eyes cast down as if lost in thought. He wandered the hills as though waiting for someone, his form shimmering faintly in the moonlight. Even now, some say, you can see his figure out in the fields, pacing slowly, eternally bound to the countryside he loved and the memory of the girl he lost. Another tale tells of an elderly shepherd who spent his final years mourning his lost love. He had met her as a young man, but life had pulled them apart, and she had married another. Even so, he held her memory close, keeping her letters and flowers she once wore in his worn coat pocket, as if clinging to a fragment of happiness. As the years passed and the seasons changed, he continued to work in the hills, finding solace in the company of his sheep. One cold morning, he passed away quietly in the field, his head resting on the ground as if he had simply fallen asleep. To this day, villagers tell of seeing an old, ghostly shepherd by the valley, still wearing his withered coat, drifting silently through the fields, as if hoping to find the one he loved waiting for him there. These apparitions are never hostile, villagers say. In fact, the phantom goatherds are thought to be protectors of the land. It's said that when one is spotted, crops grow well, and the goats give good milk. Some villagers believe that these spirits linger to protect their fields, still tending to their charges long after life has left them, bound by their loyalty and love for the land. Children are told that if they ever see a lonely figure wandering in the mist, they should not be afraid. Instead, they should be kind, for the spirits of the goatherds are as gentle as the life they once led, their hearts bound to the hills and valleys they can never leave. Yet, there is a sadness to these encounters. Some say that if you stand close enough, you can hear them whisper, calling out softly into the silence of the night. They speak the names of lost loves, or sing snatches of old songs, their voices thin as air, like a memory you can almost grasp, but never quite hold. And though they are bound to the earth, their gaze always drifts upward, as if looking for something beyond the stars. For those who have seen the phantom goatherd, the experience is unforgettable. There is a beauty to his quiet presence, something heartbreaking yet strangely comforting. He is a reminder of the stories that live on in the land, the tales of love and loss that shape the very essence of the hills and fields. These spectral figures are a part of the countryside itself, woven into the fog, the rocks, and the soil, their presence a testament to lives spent in simplicity and devotion, and to loves that even death could not sever. On certain misty evenings, those who wander the countryside alone may catch a glimpse of him, his form nearly fading into the shadows of twilight. And in those moments, as they watch him move through the mist, they feel a shiver, a blend of awe, sadness, and wonder, as if they have just brushed against a story older than time, a tale whispered by the hills themselves. On the quietest nights in Alentejo, under a moon that casts a cold glow over the fields, people say a lone figure moves silently across the land, a figure draped in dark armor, his face hidden beneath a shadowed helm. He's known simply as the Black Knight, a spirit who wanders through the countryside, bearing the heavy weight of an oath left unfulfilled. His presence chills the air, as if his sadness fills every inch of space around him. Some say he rides a midnight black horse, its hooves making no sound on the dusty earth, while others claim he walks alone, his armor rusted and worn, yet still a testament to his former honor and pride. Long ago, they say, he was a knight in service to a noble lord, a man of unmatched loyalty and courage. There was no battle he would not face, no task he would not undertake if it meant serving his liege. In the end, his loyalty went beyond duty, it became the purpose of his life, his only creed. People remember him as a man who carried himself with honor, his every movement measured, his every word spoken with purpose. In the heart of war and peace, he was known as a man who would keep his word no matter what. But as life would have it, the Black Knight was given a promise he could not keep. His lord fell in battle, taken too soon in a skirmish that came unexpectedly on a quiet morning. Before he passed, he called the knight to his side, and with his last breath, he entrusted him with a task, to protect his family, to guard them as he would have guarded him in life. He placed a heavy weight on the knight's shoulders, one he would carry even beyond the grave. The knight swore an oath to do so, an oath bound with every ounce of his soul. But fate has a cruel way of turning even the most honorable intentions into sorrow. For soon after his lord's death, he too fell in battle, and the family he had promised to protect was left defenseless. Through the mists of time, the family line faded, lost to a world that moved on, while the Black Knight's spirit remained. Unable to fulfill his last promise, he could not find peace. He returned, bound to the land, destined to wander it alone, in a restless search for redemption. Some say his spirit roams the fields, not to frighten the living, but as a silent plea for forgiveness, a soul too loyal to let go, too proud to rest. Those who have glimpsed the Black Knight describe him as a figure drenched in melancholy, his armor dark as the night itself, but his form worn and faded, like a shadow of what he once was. It's said that if you listen closely, you can hear him muttering words to himself, as if recounting the promises he made and the deeds he left undone. His voice is soft, lost in the night breeze, filled with a sorrow that sinks into the heart of anyone who hears it. His story is one of loyalty twisted by fate, of an oath that binds him to the very earth, too sacred to break, too heavy to bear. To the villagers, he has become a symbol of honor and loyalty, a reminder of the sacrifices one makes in service to another. When children hear his tale, they are taught that loyalty is a bond that lives beyond life itself, that promises made in good faith are sacred, even if they come with burdens heavier than one's heart can bear. But the elders also tell them of the danger in binding oneself too tightly to the promises of the past, for sometimes the price of loyalty is a freedom lost forever. When the winds blow through the hills of Alentejo, swirling around the old castles and sweeping through the empty fields, some say they can feel his presence. He is said to appear on moonlit nights, in the lonely hours before dawn. Those who have come across him speak of a figure who seems both real and unreal, his armor barely glinting in the moon's glow, his face hidden but his presence powerful, as though a weight surrounds him. He appears on lonely roads and deserted paths, where the only witnesses are the silent trees and the stars above, as if he is seeking something he has yet to find. They say he waits, his figure silhouetted against the horizon, staring at something no one else can see. People have tried speaking to him, offering him words of peace, but he remains silent, his gaze fixed on the distance. Some who have crossed paths with him say they feel an overwhelming sadness, as if the very essence of his story seeps into their soul. Others have seen him kneel in the fields, as if in prayer, his form bowed under the weight of the armor he wore in life and the promise he failed to fulfill. And as the morning light breaks, his figure fades into the dawn, leaving behind only the memory of his presence and a chill that lingers in the air. It is believed that the Black Knight will continue to walk the lands of Alentejo until the day he finds peace. Perhaps he waits for forgiveness, or for someone to release him from his oath. Or maybe he simply waits for the passage of time to erode his memory, to let him fade away as softly as the whisper of wind through the trees. Until then, he remains, a part of the land itself, bound by loyalty, love, and the silent grief of a soul unable to rest. The story of the Black Knight is not one that frightens, but one that humbles. It is a reminder that loyalty is both beautiful and bittersweet, that the bonds we form in life can reach beyond the grave, keeping us tied to the promises we made with every beat of our hearts. In the end, the Black Knight's tale is not about terror or doom, but about the weight of love, loyalty, and the courage to stand by one's word, even when that word leads to a path of loneliness and longing. And so, he roams, his shadow a quiet figure in the night, his spirit woven into the soil, the hills, and the hearts of all who have heard his story. On a moonlit night, if you listen closely, you might feel her presence, a figure dressed in white, moving softly through the old gardens and winding riversides, her gaze lost in the distance as if searching for someone long gone. She is Queen Inês de Castro, the Lady in White, a spirit beloved in Portugal for her tragic beauty and undying love. Her story, marked by passion and betrayal, has been woven into the fabric of Portuguese folklore, where she has transformed into a protective figure, a gentle spirit watching over the heartbroken and the lost. Inês de Castro was not born to be a queen. She came from a noble family in Galicia, her beauty and grace catching the eye of Portugal's young prince, Pedro, despite her humble lineage. But from the moment their eyes met, the two were bound together, their love so fierce and pure that it became a thing of legend. Theirs was a bond that defied all constraints, an intense, forbidden love that blossomed against the will of a kingdom. They were, in every sense, inseparable, each seeing in the other a rare and profound understanding. But in those days, such a love carried a heavy price. The prince's father, King Afonso IV, was enraged by their attachment. To him, Inês was a dangerous influence, a foreigner whose presence could threaten the balance of power. And yet, she remained by Pedro's side, weathering the disapproval, standing strong in the shadow of the court's whispering. Their love grew stronger with each passing year, and though they were forced to live in the shadows, they cherished every stolen moment. Even the walls of the palace could not keep their love from radiating like a hidden flame, warming all who were near it. But that flame was destined to burn too brightly. In a fateful decision, King Afonso ordered Inés' execution, his desperation to control his son's heart blinding him to the unimaginable cruelty of his command. Inés was taken, and in a single, devastating moment, her life was ended, her spirit torn from the world without mercy. Legend says that Pedro's cries echoed through the palace walls when he learned of her death. His heartbreak was so raw, so piercing, that the very air seemed to grow colder, as though the entire kingdom mourned with him. It is said that the skies darkened, and a great silence fell across the land, as if the world itself could feel the loss of such an innocent soul. Pedro's grief became rage, and his love for Inés would haunt him forever. He took revenge upon those who had carried out his father's order, and when he finally took the throne, he declared Inés his queen, insisting that she be recognized as his rightful wife. He commanded that her body be exhumed and placed upon a throne, her crown a symbol of the honor she had been denied in life. And so, Inés de Castro became the crowned queen of Portugal, a queen who could not reign but whose spirit remained present in the hearts of those who heard her tale. Over time, Inés' tragic story took on a life of its own. It is said that her love for Pedro was so powerful, so pure, that even death could not sever it. People began to believe that she had become something more than a memory. She had transformed into the Lady in White, a spirit that walks the earth to this day. In the gardens of Quinta das Lágrimas, where her blood was spilled, locals say the springs run red, a testament to the depth of her sacrifice. To those who pass by, they are called the Tears of Inés, a reminder that true love can transcend even the darkest of endings. As the Lady in White, Inés de Castro is said to appear to those in need, a gentle and compassionate presence who listens to the suffering of the heartbroken and offers comfort to the lost. Her spirit is believed to carry the sorrow and strength of her own story, a silent understanding that speaks to the pain of unfulfilled love and the courage it takes to endure it. For those who see her, she is a vision of solace, a guardian of those who carry burdens too heavy to bear alone. Her presence is soft, unthreatening, like a whisper in the night, a reminder that she, too, once loved and lost, and that she remains close to those who need her kindness. Inés has become more than a ghostly figure. She has become a symbol of love's resilience and the gentle power of those who suffer with grace. Her legacy touches those who, like her, find themselves caught in the chasm between love and fate. Some say that on nights when the air is still and the moon shines bright, she can be seen near the rivers and gardens she once walked with Pedro. Dressed in flowing white, her figure is pale and ethereal, her expression serene yet haunted, as if waiting for something or someone just beyond the veil of the living. It is believed that she brings peace to those who seek it, a silent promise that even in tragedy, love can create something lasting, something that does not fade. The people of Portugal hold her in their hearts, their Lady in White, their gentle queen who lost her life but not her love. They tell her story to their children, not just as a cautionary tale but as a reminder of the strength love can bring, even when it ends in sorrow. Inés' story reminds them that loyalty and devotion carry their own kind of beauty, a beauty that endures beyond time, beyond life, beyond all the shadows that try to take it away. Inés de Castro, the Lady in White, continues to walk among the people of Portugal, her memory woven into the landscapes she loved and the hearts she left behind. To those who believe, she is more than a legend. She is a comforting presence, a spirit of enduring love and unyielding strength, the queen who loved so fiercely that even death could not keep her away. Her story lingers in the night air, whispered by the wind, carried by those who remember her as more than a tragic figure but as a symbol of undying love. As twilight casts its shadow over Sintra's misty hills, there is a hush, a stillness that settles in the valleys and among the towering trees. It is here, under the veiled canopy of night, that one might sense the ancient spirits of Sintra's warrior kings, guardians and rulers who walked these lands with unbroken resolve, their presence still felt in the shivering quiet. These hills, known for their magic and mystery, are said to be home to these spectral warriors, bound to the earth and stone by oaths too strong for time to sever. Sintra has long been a place of enchantment. Some say it's the very land itself that calls to these warrior spirits, drawing them back from distant eras to patrol its forests and sacred sites, to linger in the mist that clings to the mountainsides. And if you stand upon these hills under the heavy cloak of dusk, perhaps, in that quiet hour, you will hear the distant sound of footsteps, the faint echo of armor clinking, like a memory of battles fought and victories won. These spectral kings are more than just ghosts. They are protectors, remnants of Sintra's warrior past, bound by a duty that did not end with death. They appear as shadows in armor, a slight glimmer of steel in the moonlight, their eyes scanning the land they once called home. Tales say they returned to watch over their kingdom, the land they swore to defend, and the people whose safety once rested in their hands. For centuries, Sintra's hills have held their secrets, its valleys cradling legends of kings who were both fierce in battle and wise in rule, figures who commanded not only armies but the respect of all who knew their names. Among these warrior kings, there are whispered names, figures like King Afonso Henriques, who led Portugal to its birth, a valiant ruler known for his unyielding strength and devotion to his people. It is said that on fog-laden nights, his spirit returns to these hills, a faint but powerful presence riding silently over Sintra's hidden paths. Some say he is drawn to the land he fought so hard to protect, his loyalty as unwavering in spirit as it was in life. In his presence, there is a chill, a sense of awe that those who encounter him struggle to put into words. It's as though he watches over Sintra, a silent guardian ensuring his land remains untouched by the hands of those who would seek to harm it. Other legends tell of the brave Moorish warriors who fought to hold their ground against invaders, their loyalty to Sintra's ancient hills unbroken even in the face of death. These warriors, too, are said to roam the land, spectral figures moving soundlessly among the dense forests, their eyes still filled with the fire of battle. Some who have caught glimpses of them describe the faint glint of a curved blade, the soft murmur of voices in an unfamiliar tongue, or the weighty silence that follows them as they pass. They are guardians still, committed to their vow to defend this land, their devotion binding them to Sintra's timeless hills long after the final battle cry has faded. There are legends that these kings and warriors guard treasures buried within the hills, treasures not of gold or jewels but of ancient wisdom, secrets whispered only to those who show reverence for the land. The people of Sintra say that the spirits of these kings appear to those who carry a pure heart and noble intentions, visitors who walk the land with respect. For such travelers, Sintra's hills may offer a rare glimpse of these noble specters, a fleeting encounter with history made flesh once more. And to see them is to feel a connection to the past, a reminder of the strength and wisdom that once shaped this kingdom. The locals believe that these spirits protect Sintra from those who would seek to exploit its beauty. In times of turmoil, they say, the warriors emerge in greater numbers, cloaked in shadow, to ward off threats and guide the worthy. Tales recount that during moments of political or social unrest, more and more people have spotted these spectral guardians patrolling the misty hills, as if to show that Sintra's spirit remains unbroken, that the land and its people will never stand alone. Some who have wandered too far into the hills have encountered these guardians, not as threats but as warnings. A chill that sets into their bones, an instinctual sense to turn back, a glance over the shoulder to find a dark figure standing watch at the edge of the trees. These are reminders that Sintra is not merely land but legacy, guarded by those whose loyalty outlived their mortal forms. Those who witness such apparitions return changed, their hearts touched by the resilience and honor that these spectral kings embody. The people of Sintra hold these stories close, knowing that their town is protected by more than walls or laws. It is protected by spirits who gave their lives to defend it, spirits who continue to watch over it from the shadows. To the people, these warrior kings and ancient soldiers are not ghosts to fear but reminders of the strength and pride that run deep in their land. And so, when night falls and the hills grow quiet, they listen for those footsteps, those quiet reminders that they are not alone, that Sintra remains, as always, fiercely and eternally guarded. And if you stand there, under the silver gaze of the moon, you may feel them too, the quiet strength of the past, the unwavering loyalty of these kings and warriors, lingering still in Sintra's sacred hills, forever watching, forever protecting. In the heart of Porto, where the cobblestone streets whisper stories of old, the legend of St. George and the Dragon stands tall, a tale that intertwines faith, courage, and the timeless battle between good and evil. This is not just a story of a knight slaying a beast, it is a tale that speaks to the very soul of the city and its people, echoing through time, reverberating in the hearts of those who walk these ancient paths. The air hangs thick with anticipation as the sun begins to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. It is during this magical hour that the tales of St. George come to life. According to legend, St. George was not merely a man, he was a beacon of hope, a protector of the weak, armed with unwavering faith and an indomitable spirit. His story unfolds amidst the rolling hills and valleys of Porto, where he stood resolute against a ferocious dragon that threatened the lives of many. The dragon, fierce and fearsome, was said to have laid waste to fields and villages, instilling terror in the hearts of the bravest warriors. Its fiery breath scorched the earth, and its wicked claws tore through the very fabric of existence. Villagers cowered in fear, praying for salvation, their cries rising to the heavens, desperate for a champion to free them from the clutches of this monster. In their darkest hour, when hope seemed lost, St. George appeared, summoned by the strength of their faith and the purity of their hearts. Clad in armor that shimmered like the stars, St. George rode into battle on a noble steed, his presence alone bringing a glimmer of hope to the frightened villagers. His heart was filled with compassion, not just for the people but also for the dragon, for he understood that even the fiercest creatures could be a product of pain and misunderstanding. Yet, he also knew that the dragon could not be allowed to continue its reign of terror. With his lance held high, he charged towards the beast, every beat of his heart echoing with purpose. The clash between the knight and the dragon was more than a mere battle, it was a symbolic struggle between good and evil, light and darkness. As they fought, the ground trembled, and the sky darkened, as if nature itself held its breath, caught in the web of their fierce struggle. St. George's determination was unyielding, and his faith fueled his every move. He struck the dragon with a powerful blow, and for a moment, the air was thick with tension, as if the world itself was watching in anticipation. In the heart of this battle, the tale takes a poignant turn. As St. George faced the dragon, he found not just a creature of terror, but a reflection of the fears and doubts that lurked within the hearts of the people. The dragon became a symbol of the darkness that can consume souls, a reminder that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. With every strike, St. George not only fought for the villagers, but also fought for the very essence of hope that binds humanity together. With a final, powerful thrust, St. George pierced the dragon's heart. Silence fell over the battlefield, the air thick with the weight of what had transpired. The dragon, once a figure of nightmares, lay defeated. Yet, instead of rejoicing in victory, St. George knelt beside the fallen beast, his heart heavy with compassion. He recognized that this moment was not merely about conquest, but about understanding and redemption. In that quiet space, he whispered words of forgiveness and love, a prayer that the dragon's spirit might find peace. From that day forward, the tale of St. George transformed. No longer just a warrior slaying a dragon, he became a symbol of hope and renewal. The villagers, once gripped by fear, began to heal. They learned that true strength lies not in the defeat of enemies, but in the compassion we show even to those who threaten us. This message echoed through the streets of Porto, spreading like wildfire, igniting the hearts of many. The spirit of St. George and the dragon lives on in the city's traditions, intertwined with both Christian and pagan elements. Each year, on the feast day of St. George, the people of Porto come together in celebration. They light candles, their flickering flames symbolizing hope and resilience. They recount the tale, not as a story of violence, but as a testament to the power of understanding, compassion, and the courage to face one's fears. In Porto, St. George is revered not only as a protector but as a unifier, bringing together the past and present, faith and folklore. The dragon, once a figure of terror, has been transformed into a symbol of the struggles that each person faces within. It serves as a reminder that we all have our dragons to confront, be it fear, doubt, or despair. And like St. George, we are called to rise above, to fight with love and understanding, and to seek peace even in the most challenging battles. As the sun sets over Porto, casting golden rays over the rooftops, the legacy of St. George and the dragon continues to inspire. The spirit of this tale resonates through the ages, reminding all who hear it that courage is not merely the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it with compassion and strength. The heart of Porto beats in rhythm with this story, echoing the timeless truth that we are all connected in our struggles and triumphs. And in that connection lies the hope for a brighter tomorrow. In the shadow of the ancient town of Alcácer do Sal, where the winding rivers mirror the vast sky, a haunting tale weaves through the fabric of history. It speaks of a terrifying creature, a seven-headed beast that lurked in the dark corners of the mind and the whispers of the night. This monster, born from the fears of a medieval world, became a symbol of dread that held the townsfolk captive in a grip of fear and fascination. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the landscape, the villagers would gather around flickering fires, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. With the evening air thick with anticipation, they shared stories of the beast, each telling more chilling than the last. This creature was said to have 7 heads, each one representing a different sin, a different fear that plagued humanity. It was not just a monster, it was a reflection of their deepest anxieties. The legend tells of a time when the beast roamed freely, its presence felt in the rustling of leaves and the distant howls that echoed through the night. Villagers reported strange happenings, livestock disappearing, crops failing, and children falling ill. The atmosphere grew heavy with fear, and whispers of the seven-headed beast became a part of everyday conversation. Parents would warn their children to be good, lest the creature be summoned by their misdeeds. As the story spread, so did the fear. Nights grew longer, and shadows seemed to stretch further as the beast became a living nightmare in the minds of those who lived in Alcácer do Sal. They believed that this monster thrived on their fears, feeding off their insecurities and doubts. It was said that each head of the beast could speak, echoing the voices of the villagers, amplifying their fears. Some claimed to have heard the whispers of the beast at night, calling their names, tempting them to give in to despair. One particularly stormy night, a fierce wind howled through the streets, shaking the very foundations of homes. As the thunder roared and lightning split the sky, a young boy named Miguel sat by the fire, trembling with fear. His mother, noticing his wide eyes, pulled him close and began to tell him the story of the beast. She spoke of how it had once terrorized the village, how it was said to guard a treasure that could only be reached by facing one's fears. The tale was meant to comfort Miguel, but it only deepened his dread. Miguel listened intently, feeling the weight of every word. His heart raced as he imagined the creature lurking just beyond the flickering light of their fire, watching and waiting. Despite his fear, a flicker of bravery ignited within him. He thought of the tales of knights and heroes who faced monsters and emerged victorious. Could he, a mere boy, be brave enough to confront the seven-headed beast? As days turned into weeks, the fear of the creature grew, consuming the town. The villagers began to gather regularly, seeking strength in numbers. They shared stories of those who had encountered the beast and lived to tell the tale. Each story added to the legend, making the monster seem even more terrifying. The seven-headed beast became an enigma, a puzzle they could not solve, a challenge they could not face. Driven by a desire to protect his village and inspired by the tales of bravery he heard, Miguel decided he would confront the beast. He wanted to prove that the monster was not real, that it was merely a figment of their imagination, fueled by fear. He gathered his courage and set out on a moonlit night, clutching a small lantern that barely illuminated the path ahead. As he walked towards the outskirts of the town, the shadows seemed to dance around him, whispering secrets that sent chills down his spine. Each rustle in the bushes made him pause, and every howl of the wind sent shivers through his bones. But Miguel pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of the villagers' fears resting on his shoulders, urging him to be their champion. Finally, he reached the edge of the forest, a place where the villagers said the beast dwelled. The air grew thick with tension, and Miguel felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him. Just as he was about to turn back, a low growl echoed through the trees, sending a jolt of terror through his body. He stood frozen, clutching the lantern tightly, waiting for whatever came next. Suddenly, from the darkness, a figure emerged, a towering creature with 7 heads, each one snarling and snapping at the air. Miguel's heart raced, but he remembered the stories of bravery and the strength that came from facing one's fears. With every ounce of courage he could muster, he called out, "I am not afraid of you." The beast paused, its many heads turning towards him. It let out a roar that shook the ground beneath his feet, but Miguel stood his ground. In that moment, he realized the truth. The monster was a reflection of the fears that had gripped the village for so long. It thrived on their dread, feeding off their insecurities. Taking a deep breath, Miguel stepped forward, his lantern flickering brightly in the dark. "You are not real," he shouted. "You are just a shadow of our fears. I refuse to let you control us." The words flowed from him like a river, powerful and unyielding. The beast hesitated, its head drawing back in confusion. With each step he took, the creature began to shrink, its fearsome roars transforming into whimpers. The more Miguel confronted his own fears, the weaker the beast became. The villagers whispered doubts, their long-held anxieties started to fade. The light of his lantern grew brighter, illuminating the darkness that had once seemed impenetrable. Finally, with one last roar, the beast dissolved into a mist, vanishing into thin air. Miguel stood alone in the clearing, heart racing but triumphant. He had faced the 7-headed beast and had come out stronger on the other side. When he returned to the village, the dawn broke, casting warm light over Alcácer do Sal. The villagers gathered around, eyes wide with awe as he recounted his tale. Miguel's bravery became the new legend, transforming the story of the 7-headed beast into one of courage and unity. The fear that once bound them began to lift, and together, they learned that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are those we create in our minds. In time, the legend of the 7-headed beast faded into a story of hope, reminding the people of Alcácer do Sal that they had the power to confront their fears and emerge victorious, stronger together than they had ever been alone. The echoes of their laughter filled the air as they shared tales of bravery, ensuring that no shadow could ever dim the light of their unity again. In the dim light of a candlelit room, shadows flickered against the walls, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and fear. The air felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of countless stories, whispered through generations. Among these tales were the haunting accounts of demons and possession that shaped the beliefs of many in Portugal. These stories, rooted in the country's rich folklore and steeped in religious conviction, reveal the deep-seated fears and hopes of the people. In a small village nestled among rolling hills, a young girl named Sophia began to act strangely. She was once a joyful child, her laughter echoing through the narrow streets, but as the days passed, her behavior changed. The townsfolk noticed how her bright eyes grew dark, clouded with an unfathomable sadness. She would talk to herself in a language that no one recognized, her voice shifting from sweet and innocent to low and menacing. The villagers exchanged worried glances, sharing fearful whispers about what might be happening to Sophia. As rumors spread, a sense of dread enveloped the village. The elders spoke of possession, recounting stories of spirits that could take hold of the living, twisting their minds and bodies. These tales were not mere entertainment, they carried a weight of truth, deeply woven into the fabric of Portuguese culture. Many believed that such dark forces thrived on fear and despair, preying on the vulnerable. The thought of demonic possession sent chills down the spines of the villagers, leading them to fear for Sophia's soul. Sophia's parents, desperate and frightened, sought the guidance of the village priest. Father Miguel was a kind man, known for his unwavering faith and deep compassion. He listened carefully to their concerns, his brow furrowed in thought. The priest understood that possession was not just a physical ailment but a battle for the spirit, a clash between good and evil. He agreed to visit their home, hoping to offer some comfort and guidance. As Father Miguel entered the house, he was struck by the darkness that seemed to cling to the air. Sophia sat in the corner, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her gaze fixed on the window as if she could see something beyond. The priest approached her cautiously, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what might be happening. "Child, can you hear me?" he asked softly, his voice laced with concern. There was a moment of silence, and then, in a voice that was not her own, Sophia replied, "I see him. He is here with me." The priest felt a shiver run down his spine. It was clear that something sinister was at play. Father Miguel began to pray, reciting ancient verses that had been passed down through generations. He invoked the power of God, calling upon the Holy Spirits to protect the innocent and drive away the darkness. As he prayed, the room seemed to tremble, the shadows shifting as if caught in a tempest. The priest felt the weight of the battle ahead, knowing that he was not just fighting for one child's soul, but for the very heart of the village. As the prayers continued, Sophia's body began to convulse, and an unearthly scream filled the room, echoing off the walls. It was a sound filled with anguish and fury, the embodiment of the demon's rage. Father Miguel pressed on, his voice steady amidst the chaos. He could feel the eyes of the villagers, who had gathered outside, peering in with bated breath, holding on to hope that their beloved Sophia would be saved. With every prayer, the atmosphere grew thicker, charged with energy as the priest battled against the unseen force. The villagers, filled with fear and determination, joined him in spirit. They stood outside the home, their hearts united in prayer, chanting for Sophia's deliverance. Each voice rose, weaving a tapestry of faith that reached towards the heavens. Just as it seemed that the darkness might overwhelm them, a moment of silence fell. The scream ceased, and Sophia collapsed to the floor, her small body trembling. Father Miguel knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on her forehead. "Sophia, my child, it is time to wake up," he said softly. Slowly, her eyes opened, revealing the innocence that had been lost for so long. Sophia looked around, confusion etched on her face. "What happened?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The room was still, the oppressive darkness lifted. Relief washed over Father Miguel as he realized that the battle had been won. The demon had been cast out, but the scars of the encounter remained. In the following days, the villagers rejoiced as Sophia regained her strength. Yet, beneath their joy lay a lingering fear, a reminder of the darkness that could return. They shared stories of possession and exorcism, reinforcing the belief that they must remain vigilant, united in faith against the shadows that lingered just beyond their sight. As time passed, tales of demonic encounters continued to circulate, often recounted by the fireside as the flames flickered and danced. These stories were shared with both reverence and caution, reflecting a belief in the supernatural that shaped daily life. Villagers spoke of protective amulets and rituals designed to ward off evil spirits, reinforcing the idea that faith was a shield against darkness. One such tale told of an old woman named Beatrice, known for her wisdom and connection to the spirit world. When a neighboring village was struck by a series of mysterious illnesses, the townsfolk turned to Beatrice for help. They believed she could communicate with the spirits and find a way to heal their loved ones. Gathering in the town square, they watched as she performed rituals, calling upon the spirits for guidance and protection. Her chants echoed through the night, carrying hope and fear alike. In a powerful moment, Beatrice fell silent, her face pale as if she had been touched by the very hands of the spirit world. "There is a darkness among you," she warned, her voice trembling. "But it can be defeated." Her words hung in the air, a warning and a promise that resonated deeply within the hearts of those gathered. The community came together, united in their determination to confront the darkness. They organized vigils, holding candles high, their flickering lights a beacon against the shadows. Each night, they shared their fears and hopes, finding strength in one another. The bonds forged in those moments became a lifeline, reminding them that they were never alone. Through the lens of possession and exorcism, Portuguese folklore reveals a profound connection to faith, community, and the struggles against unseen forces. These tales are not merely stories of fright, they are reflections of the human spirit's resilience, the fight for love, and the power of hope in the face of darkness. Each tale echoes through time, carrying the voices of those who came before, reminding the living that they must remain vigilant, united in the belief that light can triumph over darkness. As the villagers gathered under the starry sky, they carried with them the weight of their stories, woven together by shared fears and unbreakable bonds. In those moments of connection, they found solace and strength, knowing that no matter how dark the night may seem, they would always stand together, shining a light against the shadows that sought to creep in. In the heart of Evora, where cobblestone streets whisper stories of old, there lived a woman whose name sent shivers down spines. The Witch of Evora was her title, a name that echoed through the alleys like a haunting melody. She was both feared and revered, a figure of mystery who walked the thin line between the magical and the mundane. The townspeople spoke of her in hushed tones, sharing tales that sparked the imagination and stoked the fires of curiosity. Her name was Lucia, and she was not like the others. From a young age, she showed an unusual affinity for nature, often found wandering in the fields, her hands deep in the earth, coaxing flowers to bloom and herbs to grow. The village children would follow her, enchanted by her laughter and the way the sun seemed to shine a little brighter wherever she went. But as she grew older, whispers of her talents began to swirl through the town. Some claimed she could speak to animals, that the birds would chirp secrets in her ear and the wolves would bow their heads in submission. Others said she could brew potions that healed the sick and eased pain, using herbs and roots that only she seemed to know. With every wondrous tale, however, came fear. People often let their imaginations run wild, creating stories that made her seem more witch than woman. The townspeople's hearts turned as rumors spread. They began to believe she had made pacts with dark forces, a belief fueled by fear of the unknown. On the nights when the moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the ancient buildings, they would whisper of the witch's sinister powers, painting her as a figure wrapped in darkness. Despite the fear, Lucia remained true to her nature. She would help anyone who sought her out, often sneaking into homes under the cover of darkness to deliver remedies to the ill. She was a healer, a protector of the lost, but those who revered her often kept their distance, fearing the gossip of their neighbors. They were drawn to her gifts, but afraid of the consequences of association. One winter, a terrible plague swept through Evora, taking hold of the townsfolk with a grip that felt like ice. The sick filled the streets, their eyes hollow and their bodies frail. Desperate cries for help echoed in the night, but the fear of the witch kept many from seeking her aid. They believed that to call upon her was to invite doom into their homes. Yet, in the depths of despair, one mother named Beatrice found herself with no choice. Her child, a sweet boy named Tomas, lay pale and lifeless on their bed, his tiny frame trembling with fever. Beatrice's heart shattered at the sight. With each passing hour, hope slipped further away. In her desperation, she summoned her courage, setting out into the dark streets towards Lucia's cottage at the edge of the woods. The path twisted and turned, lit only by the flickering stars above. Beatrice's heart raced with every step, torn between the fear of the witch and the love for her child. As she reached the door, she hesitated, wondering if she was making a mistake. But the sound of her son's labored breathing drove her forward. She knocked, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night. The door creaked open, revealing Lucia, her long hair flowing like shadows and her eyes shimmering with kindness. "Come in, child," she said softly, sensing the fear that clung to Beatrice. "What brings you here in such troubled times?" With trembling lips, Beatrice poured out her heart, sharing her son's suffering. Lucia listened intently, her expression softening. "I will help him," she promised, her voice steady like the rising sun. "But you must trust me." Beatrice nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She had little choice but to place her faith in the woman the village feared. Lucia guided her inside, her home filled with the sweet scent of herbs and the warmth of glowing embers. The witch began to work her magic, moving gracefully among her jars and potions, her hands steady and sure. As Lucia prepared a potion, she explained each step, her voice soothing. "Nature has its remedies. We must work with it, not against it." Beatrice watched in awe as the witch blended herbs with care, her fingers dancing with purpose. The fear that once gripped Beatrice slowly began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope. After what felt like an eternity, Lucia handed Beatrice the potion, her eyes shining with a fierce determination. Give this to your son, and he will fight this illness. But remember, it is not just the potion that heals. Your love and belief in him matter just as much. Beatrice took the potion, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for saving my child. With the potion clutched tightly in her hands, Beatrice rushed home, her heart racing with hope. She found Tomas still weak but breathing. With trembling hands, she fed him the potion, praying with all her might. As the minutes passed, she watched for any sign, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, Tomas coughed and blinked his eyes open, the color slowly returning to his cheeks. Beatrice's heart soared as she wrapped her arms around him, tears of joy streaming down her face. Word of Tomas's recovery spread quickly through the village. Instead of gratitude, it fueled the fire of fear against Lucia. They whispered that she had used dark magic, that she had brought the plague upon them to gain power. They painted her as a villain, blind to the truth of her heart. As the days passed, more townspeople began to seek Lucia's help, realizing the power of her remedies. The witch became a beacon of hope for the sick and a source of comfort for the suffering. But the shadows of fear never truly disappeared. They hung over her like a dark cloud, threatening to engulf her at any moment. The day came when the villagers decided they could no longer live in fear of the witch. They gathered at the town square, their hearts pounding with anger and suspicion. We must rid ourselves of this evil, they shouted, fueled by the tales of darkness that had taken root in their minds. Lucia stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart heavy as she faced the very people she had saved. She saw the fear in their eyes, the same fears that had kept them from her all those years. I have only ever sought to help you, she spoke, her voice steady but filled with sorrow. I am no monster. I am a healer. But their minds were made up. They raised torches high, the flames licking the night air, casting dancing shadows that mirrored their fury. They called for her to leave, to disappear into the woods, and never return. Feeling the weight of despair pressing down upon her, Lucia took a deep breath, her heart breaking. I will go, she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. But know this, my magic comes from love, not hatred. You may think you are rid of me, but my spirit will remain in this land, forever intertwined with the roots of the earth. With those words, Lucia turned and walked away from the only home she had known. The villagers watched, their hearts filled with a mix of regret and relief. As she vanished into the shadows of the trees, they felt a deep sense of loss, realizing too late that they had cast away the very person who had been their salvation. Time passed, and Evora slowly began to heal from the darkness that had clouded it. People spoke of Lucia, the witch of Evora, with a mix of fear and longing. The stories evolved, transforming her into a figure of legend, a woman whose magical abilities had once offered hope but who had been cast aside in their time of need. The townsfolk planted gardens filled with flowers and herbs in her memory, nurturing them as a way to remember the woman who had touched their lives. Though Lucia was gone, the essence of her magic remained. The vibrant blooms were a reminder of her spirit, a testament to the love that had once blossomed in the hearts of the villagers. As the seasons changed, the whispers of Lucia's name faded, but her legacy lived on in the hearts of those who remembered. They learned to honor her memory, no longer fearing the unknown but embracing it, recognizing the beauty that lay in the magic of the world around them. The Witch of Evora became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that love and kindness can conquer even the darkest fears. In the hills of Alentejo, a place where the earth meets the sky, tales of hidden treasures and mysterious guardians swirl in the air like the fragrant scent of wildflowers. The stories of the Moorish treasure keepers capture the imagination, filling the hearts of those who hear them with both hope and fear. It is said that these spectral figures, sometimes taking the form of wise old men, sometimes as shimmering snakes, watch over treasures buried deep beneath the ground, waiting for the brave or foolish enough to seek them out. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, a boy named Miguel sat at the foot of a great oak tree. He had often heard whispers of the treasures hidden in the hills from the elders in his village. Their voices would tremble with excitement as they spoke of gold coins and jeweled artifacts left behind by the Moors centuries ago. Miguel's heart raced at the thought of finding such riches, enough to change his life and the lives of his family forever. The stories also spoke of the guardians, spirits who protected the treasures with fierce loyalty. They were not just old myths, they were real, or so the villagers believed. On nights when the moon was full and the stars danced in the sky, Miguel would lie awake, dreaming of adventure and the shimmering treasures hidden beneath the earth. His imagination painted pictures of magical beings, creatures that glided through the shadows, whispering secrets to those who dared to listen. One night, drawn by an inexplicable urge, Miguel decided to seek out the treasure for himself. Clutching a small lantern, he ventured into the cool night, the crisp air filling his lungs as he navigated through the twisting paths of the hills. His heart beat loudly in his chest, each thump echoing his mix of excitement and fear. As he climbed higher, the landscape transformed around him. The familiar sights of his village faded into the distance, replaced by the ancient ruins of what once was a stronghold of the Moors. Moss-covered stones lay scattered, remnants of a time long past. Miguel felt a strange energy coursing through the air, an electric current that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He could sense that he was getting closer to something extraordinary. Suddenly, a gentle rustling caught his attention. He turned to see a serpent slithering through the grass. Its scales glimmered like polished emeralds, reflecting the light of his lantern. Miguel froze, his heart pounding. He remembered the tales of the guardians, the snakes said to be protectors of the treasure. Was this creature a friend or foe? As if sensing his fear, the snake paused, its eyes locking onto his. There was a wisdom in those eyes that went beyond its reptilian form, a depth that stirred something inside him. "Do not fear," a voice echoed softly in the night, as smooth as silk. Miguel looked around, startled, but saw no one. The snake remained, its gaze unwavering. "I am a keeper of secrets. The treasures you seek are not just gold and jewels. They are stories, memories of those who came before you." The boy's heart raced with a mix of wonder and disbelief. "You can speak," he gasped, hardly able to comprehend the reality of the moment. "I am bound to this land, just as you are," the serpent replied, its voice resonating with the sounds of the wind. "The treasures are not meant for greed. They belong to those who honor the past and understand the weight of what they carry." Miguel's mind raced. He had imagined finding gold, a pile of shining coins to bring home. But this was something deeper. "What do you mean?" he asked, captivated. "Each treasure has a story," the snake explained. "A story of love, sacrifice, and the lives that were intertwined with this land. They must be protected, not just for their worth, but for the lessons they hold. Seek not the riches of the earth, but the richness of the heart." Miguel pondered these words, feeling a shift within himself. The allure of wealth faded as he considered the deeper meaning behind the treasures. He thought of his family, of their struggles and dreams, and the legacy they would leave behind. "How can I honor those who came before?" he asked earnestly. The serpent slithered closer, its voice gentle yet firm. "You honor them by sharing their stories. Speak their names, remember their dreams, and help your village thrive. That is the greatest treasure of all." As the moon climbed higher in the sky, Miguel felt a warmth envelop him. It was as if the spirits of the ancestors were gathering, embracing him with love and understanding. In that moment, he realized that the true treasure was not buried in the earth, but alive in the hearts of his people. With a newfound purpose, Miguel turned back toward his village. The serpent coiled at his feet, glowing softly in the moonlight. "You will find your way," it whispered, "for the path of the heart is always illuminated." As he made his way home, Miguel felt lighter, as if the weight of the world had lifted off his shoulders. He walked through the familiar streets, his heart brimming with gratitude. When he reached his family's humble home, he shared the story of his encounter with the serpent and the wisdom he had gained. His mother listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder, while his father nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind the boy's journey. In the days that followed, Miguel became a storyteller, sharing tales of the Moorish treasure keepers with the villagers. He spoke of love, sacrifice, and the strength of community, igniting a spark of hope in their hearts. The village began to thrive, not because of gold or riches, but through the bonds they forged with each other. They planted gardens together, celebrated festivals, and honored the memories of those who had come before them. As years passed, the tales of the Moorish treasure keepers grew richer, woven into the fabric of the village's history. The serpent, once a symbol of fear, became a beloved guardian, representing the power of love and the importance of remembering the past. Miguel often found himself standing at the foot of the great oak tree, where it all began, reflecting on the lessons he had learned. The hidden treasures of Alentejo were no longer just myths, they lived in the hearts of the people, reminding them that the true riches lie not in material wealth but in the love they share, the stories they tell, and the memories they keep alive. And in the quiet of the night, when the moon hung high and the stars twinkled like diamonds, the whisper of the Moorish guardians could still be heard, carrying their tales through the hills, forever watching over the land they cherished. In the vast, golden fields of the Alentejo plains, where wildflowers dance in the gentle breeze and the sun paints the sky with vibrant colors, whispers of enchanting fairies linger like sweet melodies. These fairies, known to the locals as fadas, are not just beautiful creatures flitting among the flowers, they are powerful beings capable of bestowing blessings or unleashing curses on those who encounter them. The stories of these fairies are filled with both wonder and warning, reflecting the duality of life itself. On a warm summer afternoon, a young girl named Sophia wandered away from her village, her heart filled with curiosity and a longing for adventure. Her grandmother often shared tales of the fairies that roamed the plains, painting pictures in Sophia's mind of shimmering wings and soft laughter. Sophia dreamed of meeting these mystical beings, believing that if she did, she might find magic in her ordinary life. As she strolled through the fields, the sun's rays kissed her skin, and the scent of wild herbs surrounded her. The Alentejo was alive with sounds, the gentle hum of bees, the chirping of crickets, and the rustle of leaves in the wind. With each step, Sophia felt a connection to the land, a pulse of life that quickened her spirit. Little did she know, her wish was about to be granted. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a hidden glade, a serene oasis nestled between the rolling hills. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting playful shadows on the ground. In the center of the glade, a small pond glimmered like a jewel, its surface reflecting the azure sky. Sophia approached cautiously, her heart racing with anticipation. As she knelt by the water's edge, she caught sight of a delicate figure hovering above the pond. A fairy. With iridescent wings that sparkled in the sunlight, the creature seemed to shimmer like a dream. Her laughter rang like silver bells, filling the air with a sense of joy and wonder. Sophia's eyes widened in awe. "Welcome, little one," the fairy said, her voice soft and melodious. "You found my secret place. Few are granted this privilege." Sophia's heart swelled with happiness. Here was magic, a being of pure light and beauty. She felt a connection that transcended the ordinary world. The fairy introduced herself as Lyra and spoke of the importance of balance in nature. She explained how she and her fellow fairies watched over the land, ensuring that both its beauty and its dangers remained intact. "We bless those who respect the earth and its gifts, but beware," Lyra warned, her tone shifting. "Those who take without gratitude may face our wrath." Sophia listened intently, absorbing every word. She had always respected the land, helping her grandmother tend to their small garden and care for the animals. Inspired, she asked Lyra how she could help the fairies protect the beauty of the Alentejo. With a twinkle in her eye, Lyra leaned closer, her wings fluttering like leaves in the wind. "You have a kind heart, Sophia. If you promise to cherish this land and share our stories, I will grant you a small gift." Sophia nodded eagerly, excitement bubbling within her. "I promise. I will always honor the fairies and the land." Lyra smiled and waved her hand. A soft glow enveloped Sophia, filling her with warmth and light. "You will find luck in your endeavors, dear one. But remember, with every blessing comes responsibility. Treat the earth with love, and you shall prosper." As Sophia stood to leave, the fairy's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of the pact they had made. But just as she turned to go, the atmosphere shifted. A low growl erupted from the bushes nearby, shattering the peaceful serenity of the glade. A dark shadow emerged, revealing a fierce creature, an enormous wolf with piercing eyes. It watched Sophia with a gaze that sent chills down her spine. Panic gripped her heart as she took a step back. Lyra's laughter faded, and a serious expression crossed her face. "This creature is drawn to fear, little one. Stand your ground and show no weakness." Sophia felt the fear gripping her, but Lyra's words resonated in her heart. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, remembering her promise to honor the land. "Leave me be," she called, her voice trembling but resolute. The wolf hesitated, its eyes narrowing as it studied her. Sophia's heart raced, but she felt the warmth of Lyra's blessing wrapping around her, lending her courage. "I mean no harm to you or this land. I am here to protect it." For a moment, time stood still. The wolf growled softly, unsure of this brave girl before it. But then, as if recognizing her sincerity, it turned and vanished into the shadows. Relief flooded over Sophia, and she turned to Lyra, who smiled with pride. "You have faced danger with courage, and for that, you have my respect," Lyra said. "Always remember, bravery does not mean the absence of fear, but the strength to face it." With the encounter still fresh in her mind, Sophia left the glade with a heart full of gratitude and newfound wisdom. She returned to her village, eager to share the story of her meeting with the fairy and the lesson she had learned. In the following days, Sophia became a guardian of the land, reminding others of the fairies and their importance. She organized gatherings where villagers shared tales of the fadas, emphasizing the need to respect nature and cherish the beauty around them. The villagers began to see the land through new eyes, appreciating the magic that lay hidden in the ordinary. As seasons changed, Sophia's connection with the Alentejo grew stronger. She spent her days tending to the fields, planting seeds, and nurturing the soil. The fairies seemed to respond, their laughter echoing in the breeze, and the land flourished. Crops grew abundant, and the village prospered. But life is not without its challenges. One summer, a drought swept across the plains. The sun blazed relentlessly, turning the earth to dust and threatening the villagers' livelihood. Fear began to seep into the hearts of the people as their crops withered and hope faded. Sophia remembered Lyra's words, the promise they had made. She knew she had to act. Gathering the villagers, she shared her vision of honoring the fairies and seeking their help. Together, they planned a festival, a celebration of gratitude for the land and its spirits. As the festival day arrived, the village transformed into a vibrant display of colors. Flowers adorned every doorstep, and laughter filled the air. They danced under the sun, their spirits high, thanking the fairies for their blessings. Sophia led the festivities, her heart brimming with love for the land and its magic. That night, as the stars twinkled overhead, Sophia stood by the pond in the glade where she had first met Lyra. She whispered her gratitude, feeling the cool breeze wrap around her like an embrace. "We honor you, dear fairies. We promise to cherish this land always." As if in response, the moon shone brighter, casting a gentle glow over the water. Suddenly, a shower of light appeared, and Lyra emerged from the depths of the pond, her wings sparkling like the stars. "You have honored your promise, dear Sophia. The land has heard your call." With a wave of her hand, Lyra summoned the rain. It fell softly at first, then grew stronger, soaking the parched earth. The villagers rejoiced, their laughter echoing through the night. The drought was broken, and the land came alive again, vibrant and full of promise. Sophia smiled, her heart swelling with pride. The fairies of the Alentejo Plains had become a part of her life, their magic intertwined with her own. She understood that the true gift was not just the blessings they offered, but the bond forged between the people and the land. From that day forward, the villagers revered the fairies, respecting their presence and honoring their role as protectors of the Alentejo. They shared stories of bravery, gratitude, and the delicate balance between bounty and danger. Sophia became a storyteller, passing down the tales of the fairies to the next generation, ensuring that the magic of the Alentejo Plains would never be forgotten. In this way, the fairies lived on, not just in the shimmering wings of their ethereal forms, but in the hearts of those who believed, reminding everyone that magic exists in the world around them and that with respect and love, they too could be a part of it. In the heart of Portugal, where the majestic Tagus River winds its way through ancient lands, tales of giants come alive in the whispers of the water. The river, known as Tejo, holds secrets that date back to time immemorial. The locals speak of mighty guardians, giants said to protect the treasures hidden beneath the river's depths. Their stories echo along the banks, painting a picture of awe and reverence for the natural world. Once upon a time, when the world was young, the Tejo flowed freely, nourishing the land and its people. The river was a source of life, and those who lived nearby revered it. They believed that within its waters lay treasures beyond imagination, gold, jewels, and ancient relics from forgotten times. But these treasures came with a warning. The river was also home to giants, formidable beings tasked with guarding these riches. Among the villagers, there was a boy named Miguel. His heart brimmed with curiosity, and his spirit yearned for adventure. He spent his days fishing along the riverbanks, dreaming of one day discovering the fabled treasures. But as much as he dreamed of riches, he also listened carefully to the stories told by the elders about the giants. They described the giants as both protectors and judges. They would reward those with pure hearts, but bring misfortune to those who sought the treasures for selfish gain. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the water, Miguel sat by the river, his feet dangling in the cool water. The soft lapping of the waves against the shore was calming, and he felt a deep connection to the Tejo. As he watched the sunset, a sudden chill swept through the air, and the water began to shimmer strangely, reflecting colors he had never seen before. Miguel's heart raced as he saw a towering figure rise from the depths of the river. It was a giant, with skin like stone and eyes that glimmered like stars. The creature's presence was both terrifying and magnificent, and Miguel found himself unable to look away. The giant spoke, his voice deep and resonant, echoing across the water. "Why do you linger here, young one?" Swallowing his fear, Miguel replied, "I dream of the treasures hidden in the river, mighty giant. I wish to find them and bring glory to my village." The giant regarded him with a mixture of amusement and seriousness. "The treasures of the Tejo are not meant for the greedy or the foolish. They belong to the river and to those who honor it. What would you do with such riches?" Miguel thought hard about his answer. He remembered the stories of his village, the struggles they faced, and the joy they shared. "I would use the treasures to help my people. We have little, and I want to bring them hope and prosperity." A long silence followed, and Miguel held his breath, hoping his words would resonate with the giant. Finally, the giant nodded slowly. "You speak with a pure heart, young Miguel. The Tejo rewards those who protect its spirit. But be warned, the treasures come with a great responsibility. Should you find them, you must promise to honor the river and share its gifts with others." Miguel felt a surge of hope and determination. "I promise, mighty giant. I will respect the Tejo and use its treasures wisely." With a thunderous clap, the giant vanished back into the depths, leaving behind a ripple in the water that shimmered in the fading light. Miguel sat there, overwhelmed with a mix of excitement and fear. Had it all been a dream, or had he truly spoken to a giant? As the stars began to twinkle above, he made a vow to the river, promising to honor its spirit no matter what. The next morning, Miguel awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. He gathered the villagers and shared his encounter with the giant. Many listened with wide eyes, their skepticism fading as he spoke of the promise he made. Inspired by his story, the villagers decided to hold a festival to celebrate the Tejo and its gifts. They sang songs, shared food, and offered thanks to the river, reinforcing their bond with the land and the water. As the festival grew in popularity, so did Miguel's dreams of discovering the treasures hidden beneath the surface. He spent weeks studying the river, learning its currents, and listening to its sounds. Each day brought new understanding and a deeper respect for the Tejo. One afternoon, while fishing in a secluded cove, Miguel felt something unusual beneath his boat. With determination, he reached into the cool water, feeling around until his fingers brushed against something smooth and cold. Heart racing, he pulled it up, a beautifully crafted golden chalice, adorned with intricate designs that sparkled in the sunlight. Miguel's eyes widened in disbelief. The chalice was more magnificent than he had ever imagined. But he remembered the giant's warning. This treasure was not just for him, it belonged to the river and his people. He returned to the village, chalice in hand, and told the story of its discovery. The villagers gathered, their faces filled with wonder. Miguel knew this was just the beginning. Inspired by the chalice, he led the villagers in creating a new tradition. They decided to use it during their gatherings, filling it with offerings of gratitude for the river. They would pour out a portion of their harvest into the Tejo as a way of giving back, ensuring that the spirit of the river was honored. The giants watched over them, the people could feel their presence, protective and proud. As seasons passed, the village thrived. Crops flourished, fish filled their nets, and laughter echoed along the riverbanks. Miguel's name became synonymous with kindness and respect for nature. People from nearby villages came to learn from him, inspired by his story and the lessons of the Tejo. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Miguel returned to the riverbank. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing he had honored his promise. But as he gazed at the water, the giant emerged once more, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the land. "You have done well, young Miguel," the giant boomed, his voice reverberating through the air. "The treasures of the Tejo are safe in your hands. Because of your pure heart and dedication, the river flourishes, and your village thrives." Tears filled Miguel's eyes as he bowed his head in gratitude. "Thank you, mighty giant. I am nothing without the Tejo and the support of my people." The giant smiled, his expression warm and proud. "Remember, young one, the true treasure is not gold or jewels, but the love and respect you share with your community and the land. Continue to protect the river, and it will protect you." With those words, the giant slowly sank back into the river, leaving Miguel filled with hope and purpose. He understood that his connection to the Tejo was more than just a promise, it was a legacy. Years later, as an elder, Miguel would often sit by the river, telling stories to children who gathered around him. He spoke of giants, treasures, and the importance of honoring nature. The children listened wide-eyed, captivated by the magic of the Tejo. Miguel's heart swelled with pride, knowing that the spirit of the river would live on through their stories and their actions. And so, the legacy of the giants of Tejo continued, entwined with the river's flow. Each drop of water carried the hopes and dreams of generations, reminding everyone that true treasures are not found in wealth, but in love, respect, and the bonds we forge with nature and each other. The Tagus River remained a guardian of stories and treasures, its waters a testament to the magic that happens when hearts connect with the world around them. In the heart of the Douro Valley, where the sun kisses the hills and the grapes hang heavy on the vines, whispers of ancient spirits linger in the air. These are the secret keepers, mystical beings said to guard the vineyards with an unwavering watch. Farmers and vintners tell tales of their encounters, recounting moments filled with wonder, fear, and the belief that these spirits shape the fate of their harvests. Every year, as spring unfurls its warmth, the valley comes alive with the vibrant greens of budding vines. The rich, loamy soil holds stories of generations who toiled under the sun, pouring their hearts into the earth to coax forth the perfect grape. But amid the beauty, there is an air of mystery. Many know that the spirits watch over them, guiding their hands and foretelling the future of their crops. Among the farmers was an old man named Tiago. He had worked the land his whole life, knowing every twist and turn of the Douro. His withered hands had nurtured countless vineyards, and his heart held the secrets of the valley. Every morning, as the mist rose from the river, he would walk through his fields, whispering to the vines as if they were friends. He believed the spirits could hear him. One cool spring morning, as Tiago knelt to tend to a cluster of young grapes, he felt a sudden chill. The air shifted, and a soft whisper floated through the leaves. It was as if the valley itself breathed. He paused, listening intently. The whisper grew louder, and in that moment, he felt a presence beside him. Turning slowly, Tiago saw a shimmering figure materialize among the vines. It was a woman, ethereal and glowing, her hair flowing like the river. "Do not be afraid, Tiago," she said, her voice as gentle as the breeze. "I am one of the keepers of this valley. I watch over the vineyards, ensuring they flourish under the sun's embrace." Tiago's heart raced. He had heard stories of the spirits, but never imagined he would meet one. "Why have you come to me?" he asked, awestruck. The spirit smiled, her eyes twinkling like stars. "The time has come for you to learn the ways of the valley. The omens are shifting, and you must heed them. They will guide you in the coming season." With those words, the spirit began to weave through the vines, pointing to clusters of grapes that shimmered with promise. Tiago followed her, feeling a sense of connection to the land he had never known before. She taught him to listen to the whispers of the wind and to read the signs in the clouds. The way the leaves rustled could tell him of impending rain, while the scent of the earth spoke of richness or drought. As days turned into weeks, Tiago honed his skills. He felt the spirit's presence all around him, guiding him with gentle nudges and quiet laughter. Whenever he faced uncertainty, he would close his eyes and listen. The spirits became his allies, offering comfort during the long hours of labor under the sun. But one fateful evening, as the harvest approached, a storm brewed on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled in, and fear settled in the hearts of the farmers. They gathered in the town square, voices raised in worry. This storm could ruin everything, they cried, anxiety gripping them. Tiago stood among them, his heart heavy with doubt. He had learned so much from the spirit, but now he felt lost. As the wind howled, he remembered her words about the omens. With determination, he pushed his way to the front and called out, "We must trust in the valley. I have learned from the spirits that this storm may not be as dire as it seems. If we come together, we can weather it." The farmers looked at him, uncertainty clouding their faces. "But what if you're wrong?" someone shouted. Tiago took a deep breath, steadying himself. "We must believe in the land that has given us so much. Together, we can protect our harvest." As the storm unleashed its fury, the farmers worked side by side, securing their vines and sheltering their crops. Tiago led the effort, whispering to the land, asking the spirits for guidance. The rain poured down in sheets, and the wind howled like a wild beast. Fear clutched at the villagers' hearts, but Tiago's faith kept them grounded. Finally, after hours of battling the elements, the storm passed, leaving behind a sky painted in hues of orange and purple. Exhausted but hopeful, the farmers ventured outside to survey the damage. To their astonishment, the vineyard stood tall and proud. The spirits had protected them, and the grapes shimmered with renewed vitality. As they gathered around Tiago, tears of joy mixed with laughter. They celebrated their resilience and the strength of their bond with the land. In that moment, Tiago felt the spirit beside him once more, her presence warm and comforting. "You see, Tiago? Trust in the valley and its spirits, and it will reward you." With the harvest now in full swing, the vineyards thrived. Grapes hung heavy, glistening in the sun, and the promise of a bountiful year filled the air. Tiago and his fellow farmers poured their hearts into the land, creating wines that spoke of their love for the Douro Valley. With each bottle they produced, the essence of their connection to the spirits was captured, a testament to the guardians watching over them. As time went on, the villagers shared Tiago's story with generations to come. They spoke of the secret keepers and the magic that danced among the vines. Children learned to listen for the whispers of the spirits, understanding that the land held secrets waiting to be uncovered. The Douro Valley became a place of wonder and reverence, a living testament to the power of faith and the bond between people and nature. Years passed, and Tiago grew old, his hair silver like the moonlight. Yet, he never forgot the lessons learned from the spirits. Even as he aged, he remained the heart of the valley, teaching young farmers the importance of respect and gratitude toward the land. He reminded them that the keepers of the Douro would always be there, guiding and protecting them. One evening, as he stood beneath the stars, Tiago felt the familiar presence of the spirit beside him. "You have done well, Tiago," she said softly. The valley thrives because of your love and devotion." He smiled, his heart swelling with joy. "Thank you for teaching me to listen. The spirits are alive in every vine and every drop of wine. Together, we are one." With that, Tiago closed his eyes, feeling the cool breeze wrap around him like a gentle embrace. The valley sang its lullaby, and he knew that the secrets of the Douro would carry on, whispered through the leaves and tasted in every glass raised in celebration. The spirits would forever be the guardians of the vineyards, their magic woven into the very fabric of life in the valley. In the heart of Alquiva, where the golden sun meets the sprawling horizon, ancient olive trees stand like sentinels, their gnarled trunks twisted by time and stories whispered through the leaves. Locals believe these trees are not just plants, but guardians of the land, spirits intertwined with the very essence of the olive groves. Many say that if you listen closely, you can hear their soft murmurs, a testament to their watchful eyes and the legacy they protect. As twilight descends, casting a warm glow over the fields, an air of magic envelopes the olive groves. The shadows stretch long and deep, and the trees seem to come alive, their branches swaying gently as if inviting you to sit beneath their protective canopy. This is where young Sophia would often escape, seeking solace among the ancient olives. With her sketchbook in hand, she would draw the intricate patterns of the bark, captivated by their strength and beauty. Sophia's grandmother had shared stories about these trees, tales passed down through generations. "The olive trees are alive, my dear," she would say, her voice rich with warmth. "They hold the spirits of our ancestors, watching over us, guiding us through our trials and joys." Each story was steeped in history, weaving a connection between the present and the past, binding Sophia to her roots. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting hues of orange and purple across the sky, Sophia decided to visit the grove once more. The air was fragrant with the scent of earth and olive blossoms. As she approached her favorite tree, she noticed something unusual. The ground beneath the tree was disturbed, as if someone had been there recently. Curious, she knelt down to examine the soil. In that moment, she felt a chill run down her spine. A soft whisper seemed to flow through the leaves, brushing against her skin like a gentle caress. "Help us," the voice seemed to say, a fragile sound carried on the evening breeze. Startled, Sophia looked around, half expecting to see someone hidden among the trees. But there was no one. Just the quiet rustling of leaves and the distant call of a nightingale. The feeling of unease washed over her, but she couldn't shake the urge to listen. "Who are you?" she whispered into the darkness, her heart racing. The trees swayed, their branches creating a soft chorus that felt almost like laughter, a sound filled with both sorrow and hope. "Long ago, we stood tall and proud, watching over our people," a voice echoed in her mind. "But time has not been kind. Our roots are tangled with the pain of forgotten stories. We need a voice, someone to remember." Sophia's heart ached at the thought. She had always thought of the olive trees as sturdy and wise, but now she realized they bore the weight of many untold tales. She felt a sense of responsibility swell within her. "I will help you," she vowed, her voice steady despite the tremor of her hands. "I will share your stories." With that promise, a wave of warmth enveloped her, filling her with strength. The trees seemed to respond, their leaves shimmering in the fading light as if nodding in approval. From that day on, Sophia visited the grove often, sketching and writing under the branches of the ancient olives. She listened closely, hearing the whispers of her ancestors, learning about their struggles and victories. Each story unfolded like a precious gift, revealing the history of Alquiva and the lives intertwined with the land. As the seasons changed, Sophia became the storyteller of the village. She gathered the children and their families, inviting them to the olive grove for evenings filled with tales of bravery, love, and sacrifice. Under the watchful eyes of the trees, she painted vivid pictures with her words, bringing the spirits of the past to life. Laughter and tears mingled in the air as the villagers shared in the magic of the stories. One night, as the moon hung low and bright in the sky, Sophia told the tale of a young woman who had fought to save her family's land from invaders. The villagers listened, captivated by the spirit of resilience that shone through the narrative. When the story came to an end, a hushed silence fell over the crowd. It was as if the very trees held their breath, waiting for the response. Then, without warning, a gust of wind swept through the grove, rustling the leaves violently. The villagers looked around, startled, and Sophia felt a surge of energy coursing through her. "Thank you," the voice whispered again, stronger this time. "You have given us life once more." Tears filled Sophia's eyes as she realized the impact her stories had on her community. The spirits were not just protectors of the land, they were threads woven into the fabric of their lives, and by sharing their stories, she had helped them reclaim their place in the world. As the weeks turned into months, the olive grove became a sacred gathering place. People from nearby villages came to hear Sophia speak, and the legends of the haunted olive trees spread far and wide. They spoke of the spirits that watched over the land, and how they could be heard in the gentle rustling of the leaves or felt in the cool breeze that swept through the branches. The grove flourished, filled with laughter, and the once forgotten stories found new life. But it was not just the villagers who thrived. Sophia felt a transformation within herself, a deepening connection to her heritage. With each story she told, she felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by a sense of belonging. She understood now that the olive trees were more than guardians, they were a reflection of the strength and resilience of her people. One evening, as the sun set over the olive grove, Sophia sat beneath her favorite tree, her sketchbook resting on her lap. The air was still, and for a moment, she closed her eyes, soaking in the tranquility of the moment. It was then she heard it, the soft whispering of the spirits, weaving through her thoughts, carrying messages of gratitude and love. "Thank you, dear child," the voices sang together. "You have brought us back to life. You have honored our legacy." Sophia smiled, knowing that she had become a bridge between the past and the present. The olive trees would continue to watch over Alquiva, their spirits entwined with the stories of those who loved and tended to the land. Together, they formed a bond that could not be broken, a reminder that history, like the olive trees, grows deeper with every passing season. In a world where modernity often overshadows the past, the revival of Portuguese mythology shines like a beacon, guiding hearts back to their roots. This ancient tapestry of tales, woven with threads of bravery, love, and mystery, is once again finding its way into the hearts of a new generation. As the sun rises over the rolling hills of Portugal, it brings with it not just light, but stories that have long lingered in the shadows, waiting to be rediscovered. In bustling cities and quiet villages, the influence of mythology can be felt in vibrant art, music, and literature. Local artists, inspired by tales of brave knights, beautiful maidens, and mystical creatures, are creating works that breathe life into the legends of old. In galleries, canvases filled with scenes of the legendary figure of St. George battling dragons captivate visitors, while sculptures of ancient heroes and spirits stand as proud guardians of cultural history. These artworks don't just hang on walls, they tell stories that resonate with the soul, evoking feelings of nostalgia and pride. As tourists wander through the streets, they are not only experiencing the beauty of the landscape, but also stepping into a living narrative. Festivals celebrating Portuguese folklore bring communities together, showcasing traditional dances and music that echo the rhythms of centuries past. The air is filled with laughter and joy, as people dress as characters from their beloved myths, celebrating their heritage with every beat of the drum and strum of the guitar. Children listen wide-eyed to storytellers spinning tales of the cunning Trascos and the protective spirits of the Douro Valley, their imaginations ignited by the enchanting narratives that connect them to their ancestors. The revival of these stories is not just an artistic expression, it is a lifeline to the past. The significance of this revival is felt deeply among the elders, who share their memories of growing up with these legends. They speak of nights spent around the fire, where the flickering flames illuminated their faces as they listened to the tales of the past. For them, these stories were more than entertainment, they were lessons of courage and wisdom passed down through generations. As they see the younger generations embracing these narratives, their hearts swell with hope, knowing that their cultural heritage will continue to thrive. In the countryside, where the olive trees stand tall and the rivers flow with whispered secrets, the local myths weave seamlessly into daily life. Farmers plant their seeds with care, paying homage to the spirits they believe protect their land. They tell their children to respect the giants of the Tagus, who guard the treasures hidden within the river, and the fairies of the Alentejo plains, who bless or curse those who stumble upon them. This connection to mythology enriches their daily routines, reminding them that they are part of something larger, a rich history that deserves to be cherished. In the realm of tourism, the revival of Portuguese mythology is drawing travelers eager to experience the magic of the land. Guided tours take visitors to ancient castles, where legends of knights and battles come alive in the echoing halls. Local guides share the stories of the phantom goatherd and the Black Knight of Alentejo, transporting tourists to a time when these figures roamed the earth. Travelers leave with more than just photographs. They carry with them the essence of Portugal's soul, a tapestry of myths that adds depth to their experience. Social media has become a powerful tool in this revival. Young people are sharing their love for Portuguese mythology online, creating communities that celebrate their heritage. They post images of local folklore festivals, share stories, and even write their own interpretations of the legends. Hashtags like #MythicalPortugal bring together enthusiasts from around the world, fostering a sense of belonging and pride in their shared history. The stories, once whispered in the shadows, are now sung from rooftops, echoing across borders and inspiring a global appreciation for Portuguese culture. In schools, educators are recognizing the importance of integrating these stories into the curriculum. Children learn about the heroes and mythical beings of their ancestors, sparking curiosity and a sense of identity. They engage in art projects inspired by the tales, creating illustrations and performances that allow them to express their understanding of the mythology. In doing so, they become part of a living tradition, learning that they too can add their voices to the ongoing narrative. The revival of Portuguese mythology is also evident in literature. Authors are weaving these tales into their stories, crafting novels that bring together the old and the new. Readers find themselves immersed in worlds where the past and present coexist, where ancient spirits guide modern-day heroes. These stories resonate with readers, reminding them of the timeless nature of love, sacrifice, and the battle between good and evil. Each page turned is a step further into a landscape rich with emotion and history, inviting readers to reflect on their own lives and the legacies they carry. As night falls and the stars blanket the sky, the echoes of laughter and storytelling fill the air. Families gather under the olive trees, sharing the stories that have shaped their identity. Each tale, whether of a wise witch or a fierce warrior, serves as a reminder of their heritage, a bond that connects generations. The trees stand as silent witnesses, their branches reaching toward the heavens, holding within them the whispers of the past. The revival of Portuguese mythology is a beautiful testament to the power of storytelling and the importance of preserving cultural heritage. It is a movement that reaches into the hearts of young and old alike, reminding them of the strength found in their roots. Through art, music, literature, and the celebration of ancient tales, the spirit of Portuguese mythology continues to thrive. As each story is told and retold, it creates a ripple effect, bringing the past to life and infusing the present with magic and meaning. This revival is more than just a resurgence of interest, it is a heartfelt embrace of identity, a journey back to the essence of who they are.